probably be in a position, like all players, as soon as they get to the Warriors, to play some of the best basketball of his career on the greatest team he'll ever be on.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I think it's a great move. He's a young veteran. This is an incredibly young basketball team. So anybody in their 30s, I think, is going to be kind of appreciated at this point. Great athlete. I mean, explosive leaper. Long wingspan, 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. I mean, he's one of these really long players. He's a 6'8" player, but he plays like 6'10", blocks shots, a lot of energy, pretty strong, stronger than you think, pretty good on the offensive glass, quick off his feet, quick jumper. I really like it because he's an efficient player, Damon. This is a guy who is almost a 90% foul shooter.
He's someone
that means you can finish. He can be in your finishing lineup.
This guy is someone who is either the 9th or 10th guy coming off your bench, or he plays the kind of basketball that makes you reevaluate where he really is on your team's pecking order, where he's the 7th guy now off the bench. He's not going to be a 6th man, obviously, but he's someone who should thrive in the system.
He's an energy big man who can shoot a little bit from the perimeter, but he's not Bielitsa. He's not Otto Porter. He's not that kind of a three-point marksman. He doesn't have that kind of range. But as far as just a veteran big who can get up and down and finish and be athletic and defend, I like it. And, last year I think he shot 87% from the line. So if you could up that, imagine if you had a 90% foul shooter to go with Steph and Clay and Poole.
Well, that's 3 90%ers right there in just Steph, Poole, and JaMychal Green. So we'll see when it does happen, but there you go. Some pretty good guests coming in on the Comcast Business text line. Could it be John Miller? No, John Miller comes on with us, I don't want to say frequently.
The Kahuna? Big Kahuna?
But John Miller is someone who joins us every now and then, so it's not John Miller.
I love John Miller.
Is it going to be Gary Radnich? Very good guess.
Another guy that I love.
But no
G-Rad.
Not a lot of love from this angle, from this side of the studio.
Different experiences.
Much different experiences. I wouldn't caddy. But no, respect to the crafty veteran. But no, he will not be joining us. Not Rod Brooks. No, not Rod Brooks. Good guess. No. So we have a serious mystery guest, though, coming up at 4:15. I think you're going to enjoy it. We're brought to you by BMW Fairfield, now open in the Fairfield Auto Mall. Visit bmwfairfield.com today to book your visit. So, Larry, turning down $440 million and then winning a home run derby is one of the more baller things any baseball player's done in a while, don't you think?
How awesome was Juan Soto? There was 2 things I loved last night. Juan Soto's smile and his energy, and kind of the way that the Latin players largely, and some of the other players as well, gathered around Albert Pujols.
That was cool.
I don't know that people have the understanding of how Albert is thought of by his fellow countrymen and by his fellow big leaguers. I mean, he's respected, and the love and the respect and the admiration was so apparent watching Albert do his thing. And yeah, he may have cheated. There may have been, he probably didn't deserve to beat Schwarber, but who cares?
Hey, he didn't cheat.
Yeah, he didn't.
Counting the home runs might have screwed it up.
But Pujols is admired, and I thought that was really a cool moment.
As he should be. He is, if you've lived the same lifetime you and I are living, that Albert Pujols is one of the single greatest baseball players you're ever going to watch in your entire life. Full stop. That's who he is. He's got the numbers to back it up. He's got the titles to back it up. The shame of his career is he didn't stay in the one place where the beloved factor would have carried all the conversation on Pujols. To be the greatest St. Louis Cardinal of all time. I mean, look at, Ozzie Smith. Ozzie Smith was a pop hitter and a hell of a defensive shortstop, and he is revered like, he's Stan Musial, and
McGuire's beloved.
McGuire got beloved. They also turned on him fast, though. They took his name right off the damn highway as soon as he got caught.
Yeah, but they did honor him in their Cardinal Hall of Fame.
Right. They still got the Big Mac land in the new stadium. But anyways,
Albert should never have left, is the point.
He should have never left. He should have stayed in a place where he could win on the main stage of baseball. He took the side stage at the Lollapalooza that is the, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, whatever the hell they were calling themselves at the time, still to this day. You're rendering yourself off the main stage. It's just that simple. You want to come play baseball on the West Coast, be a Dodger, be a Giant. Outside of that, you are on the side stage. With all due respect to the Padres and all of their look at who they are this year, that's still the others. It's about Giants and Dodgers. That's what baseball on the West Coast means. And I'll tell you right now, if I am commissioner of Major League Baseball, I am calling Paul Simon. I am getting the rights, whatever he wants, to me and Julio down by the schoolyard. And I have 3 different cuts, a 30-second, a full minute, and a 90-second cut of Julio Rodriguez, and I am making this young man one of the new faces of Major League Baseball, and I am going to put him on every single billboard, commercial break, anything, anywhere baseball has a chance to have a 30-second commercial. If Julio Rodriguez isn't a part of it, they're screwing it up. He is
awesome.
Something to watch.
Oh,
he was awesome.
He didn't wear. I mean, I would prefer he wore a hat, but you know what? Who cares?
A lot of guys going no hat.
I know.
Yeah,
he's awesome. By the way, when you said main stage, I couldn't help but think, Tabitha's on the main stage. Okay. No, but let me ask you this: would you? Because you brought up something that's really interesting. Albert secured the bag, and he kind of prioritized securing the bag, the big bag of money, over kind of his place in the game. He would have had a larger, more significant place in the game if he had just stayed his whole career in St. Louis and done it there, but he secured the bag.
Well, what the funny thing is,
what would you have done?
He took, you do not walk away from the most amount of love you're ever going to get. You do not walk away
but
from
that could be the
formula.
Money. How do you measure love?
But here's the deal. There is no way that Albert and the money that he made went further than taking less money and still a level of money that you could never spend in your lifetime to have remained a St. Louis Cardinal. Like whatever Artie Moreno paid him, the price of living in California, the price of the place that you buy in California, the way that you are taxed in the state of California basically makes, if you took $30 fewer million to stay in St. Louis, I guarantee you your money still goes further than coming out to California. And oh, by the way, you are in every discussion about Major League Baseball that Major League Baseball is having, where you basically signed up to play anonymously when you become a Los Angeles Angel. So
he made more money for himself, but baseball lost an opportunity for Albert Pujols to be make more money for baseball. And I think baseball ought to look at this, learn from this, and incentivize players to stay. Because if Albert stayed, and if all these guys who built relationships in these markets stayed, I think, we talked about it. Baseball's not national. It's local. It's regional. It's not national. So the relationships are local and regional. So Albert Pujols had incredible relationships and potential to grow it even more there. And Buster Posey had that here. And to me, it's just better for baseball if if Clayton Kershaw stays with the Dodgers, if Buster Posey stays with the Giants, if the late Kirby Puckett stayed with the Twins, if Pujols stays with the Cardinals.
You can't.
And I think they should incentivize it.
You can't be more relevant in any baseball city, because there's no city that loves baseball like St. Louis. It really is a special place. And as a Cub fan, I'd want to swallow a little before I say that. Someone who grew up a Cub fan. I've since rejected and walked away. I'm done.
You done with the Cubs?
In
since
many
when?
ways. Well, since the Ricketts ruined Wrigley Field and everything around it and decided to blow this. By the way, the Cubs blowing themselves up. Look, if Juan Soto is a bridge too far, why isn't Wilson Contreras on the top of where the Giants should maybe be looking to have a better second half, because he's going to get moved by August 2nd. Anyways, we got a lot to get into today. Damon, is it going to be Button Vixen? No. Is it Ray Ratto drunk on vacation? No. Is your mystery guest my mom? Maybe.
Jermichael Green?
Not Jermichael Green. Good guess, though.
Joe Lacob?
Is it Will Ferrell? Is it Draymond Green to settle beef with Damon? No, but we're working on it. I'll tell you that right now, but not today. We got an awful lot coming up. It's Damon and Ratto with Larry in this week. And if you haven't already, make sure you sign up to Damon and Ratto on that Odyssey app or wherever you find your favorite podcast.
Now with Xfinity, you'll get unlimited internet with gig speed and supersonic Wi-Fi. With a 2-year internet rate guarantee, no annual contract required, and no equipment fees. Talk about knock your socks off. Ooh, plus a free Flex 4K streaming box. It's like...
I used to get frequent heartburn at night, so I made Prilosec OTC part of my morning routine.
One pill in the morning, 24 hours, zero heartburn with Prilosec OTC. It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
Now back to Damon and Ratto on 95.7 The Game. Brought to you by BMW Fairfield. Now open in the Fairfield Auto Mall. Visit bmwfairfield.com today to book your visit.
Damon and Ratto. It's officially streaming on Twitch, on YouTube. You can head to twitch.com/957 The Game, youtube.com/957 The Game, and boom, you can take a look. And when you look today, you will not see Ray Ratto. You're going to see Larry Krueger, who is in this week. Larry, I know that you're very impressed about the way that 95.7 The Game embraces new technology, yet you're not willing to dress for it.
That's right. That's right. I got the Texas A&M, my Texas A&M T-shirt on today.
Right out of a hamper.
There you go.
Right out the hamper.
Go Aggies.
Go Aggies. Is there an Aggies in you? Is there an Aggie?
Yeah, I've been an Aggie fan since like 1978 or 79.
Have you ever gone? Have you ever gone to College Station?
I have been to College Station.
12th man?
I haven't been to Kyle Field since they renovated it, but my neighbor growing up was a kid whose dad was an oil man, and he moved from Houston like in the third grade. And so he's like, who's your college team? And I'm like, I looked at my dad. I'm like, Dad, who's my college team? My dad went to USF. So he's like, well, you don't really have a college team. So I said, you know what? I don't have a college team. He's like, your college team's now A&M.
All right.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, all right.
You could do a whole lot worse.
Yeah. So Cal and A&M had a back home and home deal in like 78, 79. So we went out to Berkeley. And I've become an A&M fan ever since.
There you go.
So there you go. There's the story.
I like it. That's a good story.
Giants, Niners, Warriors, Sharks, A&M.
I mean, the Hoosiers were just right there waiting for you. If you would like a doormat to wipe your cleats off on.
You are what? Bears, Bulls, Cubs, no longer. So
well, no,
are you now
thing.
Warriors, Giants, Niners?
No. So here's what
you've been here a while.
So I would like to say that. Okay, so Ray has rejected the concept of even enjoying sports, much less rooting for anyone.
Will Ray even give you a favorite? Did Ray ever have a favorite team? Like
no.
Going back when Ray was small?
He only likes teams that no longer exist. That's it. That's all. He likes
Expos,
defunct Canadian League football teams.
Nordiques.
Yes. No, but there is a part of me that is, I guess, professional enough to tell you that it's not my job to root for any of these teams out here. I'm going to tell you that my sons are both born in San Francisco. I expect them to grow up Giants fans. I'm not going to put that cubdom on them. It's their choice, whatever they want to root for. But they're from the city of San Francisco in the same way that I was born in Chicago. That means an awful lot to your rooting interests. I expect them to grow up 49ers fans. I have so had it with the McCaskies that I am pretty much done with the Bears, totally ruined Soldier Field, the way the Ricketts ruined Wrigley Field, which were two of my favorite things about these teams. Like, we have incredible stadiums, and they're just also buffoons. I mean, the last 25 years of Bears football is among the most embarrassing things of all time. So I'm a big believer that you don't have to keep on supporting crap your entire lifetime because you chose them when you were a kid.
So you loved them in 85, though, didn't you?
Oh, dude, I was 10. Come on. Super Bowl Shuffle? You did too.
Super Bowl Shuffle was cut in like week 6.
Yeah. Yeah, they were not joking around.
That's incredible.
The only team out here that has absolutely 100% found its way into my heart is the Golden State Warriors because of who they are and how they play. The single most beautiful brand of basketball I've ever watched in my life. And I'm a sucker for a motion offense. Go Hoosiers. This is the greatest motion offense ever run by any basketball team ever. So it's just the sexiest, most beautiful basketball ever. And you can suck me in when your sport is aesthetically gorgeous to me. So that's how they got me.
So the Warriors are your team. Bears still? You're not really committing.
I'm enough of
Indiana,
enough of a football team. The only team
Hoosiers,
it's
Warriors.
Indiana basketball. Indiana football is the bane of my existence. Can't wait for that first matchup against USC. We're gonna kick their ass.
You know who we got to get on for you? Marcelino McCrary Ball from Indiana, who looked awesome at the minicamp. He's a linebacker who played at Indiana. in Niner camp.
There you go. Get
He's
him
gonna
in.
be
Get
your
him
favorite.
on. Somebody says, is Joe Fortenbaugh coming up at 4:15? No, we would just promote Joe if it was Joe. Is it Aubrey Huff? No, it is not. Is it Gianna Franco? Again, this is someone that we would promote. We are leaving. Is it Barry Bonds? Maybe.
Someone says, why does Larry dress better for his YouTube channel? Come on, I'll wear anything on that channel as well.
Pants?
Always pants.
Okay.
Always pants. Shorts usually.
Do you stand up for that too?
Sometimes I stand, sometimes I sit. But I do like to stand during the, you stood for years and years. I mean, it's odd for me to see you sitting during the show. You were always a stander.
Stroke.
I got this from you.
El Stroco Loco. So here's the thing. When I had my stroke, it affected the part of my brain that is responsible for speech and balance. Larry, I'm very lucky that I can still talk like this. You could blow me over with a feather. My balance is the worst you've ever seen. I trip over my own 2 feet almost daily.
You'll be doing no pass blocking. You're no longer a left tackle candidate.
You do not run blocking only. Like I'm the Aaron Banks of this station. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
But look, it's yeah. So
message to you, if you see Damon on the street, just barrel him over.
Standing for a good forearm shiver is going to send me into the glass. So look, so that's why I do a lot of sitting, because I just don't stand very well for very long. Anyway, woe is me. I'm lucky to be here. Let's talk about the home run derby.
Yeah.
Because how baseball continues to screw up something so simple is absolutely beyond me. Let's start with just the broadcast itself. All you Twitter 24-year-old punks who used to make fun of Chris Berman. Back,
gone.
How much do you miss him now?
Oh my God, I missed him so bad.
And look, I'm not here to go broadcaster on broadcaster crime. Carl Ravitch is the human equivalent of Ambien. It's like Chris Myers. It's just, this is not exciting. I won't emote a single drop of energy for anything. So what that broadcast was missing was a little Chris Berman having some fun.
Yeah, have some fun. Let your hair down.
Damon, don't let the Cubs or Bears make it back to the playoffs again. You're right. You're right about that. But look, we got bigger fish to fry.
Have some fun with the broadcast, though, and figure out. And you tweeted this, and I saw it last night, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're of like mind on this." Because my 13-year-old was saying this. This is the worst camera angles I've ever seen in a home run derby ever. Like, we could not see how well the ball was hit. It was close-ups. It was, do we need facial shots? Instead of actually showing where, I don't know, the baseballs that home run derby actually went.
The split screen was terrible. That format doesn't allow you to admire what we're all here to admire. And the fact that they've got, 3 minutes, and basically it's, do you ever see a group of drunk buddies try to get one more bucket of balls in at a top flight thing? Like, this is not, it shouldn't be about speed. Go back to 10 outs or raise it to 15, raise it. You get 20, 10 outs. 10 outs. Foul balls don't, foul. You want to, if you want to give guys more swings, that's great, but don't let them swing themselves out. To have guys swinging themselves out to get out of a first round, which shouldn't be about a head-to-head matchup anyway, and that's another big problem with it, is ridiculous to me. Julio Rodriguez finished second with 81 total home runs last night.
He was incredible.
Juan Soto, who was very good, hit 53 total home runs.
And won
because he got to, just one more than that unimpressive total, and I'm in. You got Corey Seager hitting 24 first-round home runs, but he doesn't make it out of the round because, you got Soto going historic. Seager had the second highest total of the first round, barreling it. And he's out? That makes no sense. Why do you take the one guy who's absolutely locked in? Schwarber can't find a stitch of rhythm, And, he loses to Albert Pujols. Pujols was a great story.
I
Came out of nowhere.
thought Schwarber might have tanked for Pujols.
I don't know.
He seemed he was hitting line drives, and it was first of all they miscounted on the Schwarber. He actually had one more than they actually said. Which, how do you miscount? I mean, seriously, we're counting to 20. We're miscounting, but I just felt like Schwarber was like the way he gave Albert all that love post round. I thought maybe he's deferring to Albert on Albert's way off the stage.
By the way, how happy was Albert Pujols that Soto took him out in that second round? He was exhausted. He was
beat. Yeah.
But anyway, so the split screen is awful. You get absolutely no time to admire any of these moonshots because you are watching just this guy swinging. You don't even know where the ball is going. Can't even track it to the point where they lost track on ESPN, which is why Schwarber maybe didn't even make it out of the first round. Now, since there is a level of gambling on this,
right,
like never before, you got to follow rules. And one of the rules last night is your pitcher
can't hurry up,
can't throw the next pitch until that ball has landed. Well, no pitcher is watching where that ball lands because you don't have the time to do that. So every single one of those should have technically, by the rules, been disqualified.
Right.
But they're not. So why have a new set of rules that everyone ignores and has so much time following? The production truck can't even do it. And I also think if we're really just boiling it all down to old man shaking fist at a cloud, I hate the fact that they've got 300 little kids in the outfield who are just basically moving as an amoeba and watching balls just drop all around them.
And who are those kids, by the way?
Well, who those kids should be? Some of the best high school baseball and softball players in the city that you're hosting your all-star game in, and have them actually get a chance to make a leaping grab because you're not going to dive into 9 other kids. Have a kid, kid, this is your quadrant.
Give him some room to operate.
Exactly. Make a play, kid, and
go over the wall and take one back.
If you can, go ahead.
That would be cool.
That would be something. If you can get just a whole bunch of Tory Hunters out there just robbing. But by the way, Tory Hunter stopped down by the morning show. I was driving around this morning. It's one of the best interviews about baseball all season long on our station. Tory Hunter, go back and listen to the Morning Roast today. He was fantastic. Anyways, the format leads to way too many broken rules, which I think blew up in baseball's face, and gamblers are pissed off all over the country. Again, I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't like Bad Bunny. I hope you like Bad Bunny. I'm not anti-Bad Bunny. Why is Bad Bunny bringing out the home run derby trophy? Why is Kirk Gibson not available?
So random.
Has Sandy Koufax died? Is there a Dodger legend available to present this trophy? I mean, just desperately trying to be cool. Here's Bad Bunny bringing out all right. It would have been cooler if it were Snoop Dogg. It would have been cooler if it were Snoop.
Seriously. It would have resonated more with the people of LA probably too.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Bring out Dre.
It's baseball knows that they're losing relevancy and they know they need to change, but it's like nobody really knows what they need to change to. And so they're just like, it's like the guy who designed the Minute Maid Park or Enron Field in Houston. And they just, instead of having a bunch of ideas, they just took every single idea and put it into the stadium.
Right. We're going to have a hill.
We're going to have a hill.
And a flagpole in play.
Right. And a train and a this and a that. And It's like, we'll just do it all, and it's like, wait a second. You have the most junkified yard in the history of the world. And it's like the same thing with baseball. And we're going to put the draft in the baseball amateur draft. And that was, ragtag as well. The broadcast was really weird. So baseball knows they need to be more relevant. They know they need to be different. They know they need to change. They just don't know what they need to change into. And you can kind of see that they're just trying things. And next year they'll try a bunch of new things. But to me, I thought they ruined it on the camera angles because you couldn't even tell which ball was hit and which ball we were watching. It was coming at that kind of a speed. So I don't know. It's not meant for, to be thought of critically, but man, I don't know that I'd want to wager on it based on what I saw last night.
I wouldn't touch that. I wouldn't touch that as a wagering thing. You got a lot of things to bet on that are a lot more straight up and explainable than that. I mean, you got to kind of be that's degenerate time right there. So, but look, people want to just throw a little money down and have fun, and then you don't even want to get screwed out of a $5 bet. You know, if we got rules, we will enforce. This isn't Vietnam, Donnie. There are rules here. 8 hitters all just hit in the first round. No more head-to-head combat, man-to-man combat in the first round. That is stupid. That's terrible. Don't do that.
That almost
let
guarantees
your 4 best hitters through.
Right. If you have 2 guys that you paired wrong and they both went off, one of those guys by definition can't go on. So it's a bad format.
I just thought there were so many better ways to do it than they actually did it. And you got Julio Rodriguez, who, again, as we were saying earlier, if I'm running baseball, he is a household name by the end of this week. I am taking all the advertising time that I can find and I'm running commercials that are just Julio Rodriguez hitting home runs to, Paul Simon's Me and Julio down by the schoolyard. He hit 63 home runs in the first 2 rounds. He took out back-to-back defending champion Pete Alonso, who, God bless Pete Alonso and how seriously he takes that. I love it.
It's like closing his eyes.
Yeah.
He was like
deadlifting.
Yeah, deadlifting.
$750,000 prize for coming in second place is more than Rodriguez will make this season.
I saw that.
So he's going to make $700,000 this season. There are 4 30 home run rounds in home run derbies ever. And now Julio Rodriguez has 2 of them himself. He's the first player ever with 2 in a single derby. One of them has to be Abreu from when he went bonkers at Tiger Stadium or Comerica or whatever they called it at that time. The new Tiger Stadium, when they got their first All-Star game.
It was Comerica.
Yeah, it was Abreu. And he just went barrels.
Josh Hamilton.
Shots.
How about Josh Hamilton?
And Josh Hamilton, I think, was the other one at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, in the Bronx. And it was also a first-round deal where these guys are fresh and they just park endless bombs. It's an incredible show. And then that only gets you to the second round. We've seen guys that kind of out-homer themselves and get fatigued, and it's kind of like having the dunk contest. It's easy to think of this last year's dunk contest was awful, like literally a commercial to cancel the dunk contest. Kind of the same vein, you're getting tired. Your best stuff's up front because your energy is expended up front.
We're brought to you by BMW Fairfield, now open in the Fairfield Auto Mall. Visit bmwfairfield.com today to book your visit. After the home run derby, Juan Soto talking to Buster about his future on ESPN.
Everyone in baseball is talking about your future, the next few weeks. What do you want to have happen?
Right now, I don't even think about it. I think I'm a champion, and I will be a champion for the Nationals.
There we go. I'm going to be champion for the Nationals. He's like Leandro Barbosa. We're going to be champion. Nationals are not going to be champions, but that guy wins the home run derby, and turning down $440 million and then winning a home run derby, like we were saying earlier, it's got to be one of the all-time baller moves. More from Juan Soto on MLB Network.
Yeah, definitely. With all this stuff that is going on, you just got to clear your mind, and winning these is just helping me out more to feel more comfortable to go to the second half.
So did you hear, and I know, since we work locally before we work nationally, the whole part of, Paul Blackburn was booked on a commercial flight and the A's weren't home. So it's not like, Oakland to LA, you don't need a private flight for that. Oakland to LA, by the time you reach cruising altitude, you're already descending to LAX or wherever you're landing. But he's coming from Houston. He's coming from Houston because that's where the A's first half wrapped up. The Houston Astros, baseball's biggest cheaters, somehow look classier than the Oakland A's. I mean, think about that. That's something else. Paul Blackburn was booked on a commercial flight because the Astros found out that he was booked, and they said, hey, just hop on our charter. Like, that'd be the nice thing to do. So, of course, I tweet about this and a ton of excuse makers. And, I literally got A's fans talking about how carbon footprints are now important. What's important is to look like a first-class organization. And if you think your owner, John Fisher, has ever flown commercial since his early 20s, you're out of your mind. That guy's taken private planes, probably, from SFO to Oakland. Like that. Private planes are all he knows. It is not out of the norm for a baseball team to take a guy going to his first All-Star game and serve him the lobster. By serving the lobster, I mean, you make it the most unforgettable special trip. What would have really been cool, what other teams have done in the past, is take a first-time All-Star as you're wrapping up your half on the road. They'll fly your family out to be with you in your last game of the first half. Then they'll charter a plane and send you to the All-Star game. Now, the whole Paul Blackburn thing, it's easy to look at the A's and just joke about how perpetually cheap they are in any and all moments. But even the Washington Nationals look worse. They didn't charter a plane for Juan Soto, who's in the home run derby. They made Juan Soto fly commercial, land at LAX at 2 a.m.
Standby? Do you fly standby?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he's in the jump seat next to a stewardess. Excuse me, flight attendant.
That's right.
But it's ridiculous to say, all right, well, we're going to send you to the All-Star game. You're in the home run derby, and you're in boarding group C on Southwest. I mean, that is wrong. That is wrong. And no wonder why Scott Boras is looking at you going, come on.
Well, and your fans, I mean, I don't know if you check, but the A's are dead last in attendance because they've basically done a commercial. Don't come here. Don't come here. And their fans are now taking them up on it. But yeah, how cheap is that? The Giants, by comparison, when guys make their major league debut, they fly their entire family into San Francisco. I saw that the other day. They had whoever it was that was making their major league debut in the last homestand. They flew their guy's entire family in. I mean, that's
Vossler.
No, it wasn't Vossler. No. But I mean, that's a classy move. And to not do that what can a player do for you more than make the All-Star team? It's almost in some ways you'd
VR. Is it VR?
We might have been VR. Yeah,
Okay.
It might have been VR. Yeah, VR's family. I mean, there's, it's there's mom, there's dad, there's the sister, the brother. I mean, they got 6 or 7 people that they flew in, give them tickets, and roll out the red carpet for them because this is a special moment. And the A's are just you're an all-star for us. We're not even expecting you to be an all-star. Are we going to treat you great? Nah.
By the way, so we called, I had Lucas. I said, do me a favor. How normal is it for a team to charter a flight for a solo all-star? So the first solo all-star going, because I don't know if Rodon went down there. I think he did go down there. But apparently, Jock Peterson only travels by private plane. We found that out today. Lucas called a few other teams. He's waiting to hear back from traveling secretaries, so we'll let you know. Meanwhile, look, I was telling my wife, I was talking to her about it, and I was just like, she works in a tech industry, and how they treat employees defines kind of the tech industry. And these are not major leaguers going off to their first All-Star games. But when my wife goes on any sort of trip on Salesforce's behalf, it's a real nice business class seat. It's an excellent hotel room. It is, you need room service. Will that help you start your day? Get room service. We'll take care of that. just treating people who are working hard for you right and special is the good way to do it. Meanwhile, the little orphan A's, let me tell you how the little orphan A's, if this was Annie, Daddy Warbucks never shows up and she dies in the orphanage, hungry and alone. That's the way John Fisher would go about casting the little orphan A's. Mrs. Hannigan wins. Finn. French film, roll it. We got to take a quick break, about a half an hour away from Mr. Mystery Guest, and I know you're going to want to stick around for him today. If you're looking for more Giants talk, check out the Garlic Fries Baseball Guys podcast hosted by our very own Mark Willard, who you sounded great with, by the way, earlier this week.
Thank you.
And Joe Shasky. You can check it all out on the Odyssey app, wherever you listen to your podcast. We are brought to you by Fremont Bank, full service banking No compromises.
The BetQL model has you covered during the All-Star break. I'm Joe Giglio here to help you beat the books with BetQL. It's the slowest week on the sports calendar, but the BetQL model still has plenty of actionable data available. BetQL has 3 5-star bets posted for this week's MLS action, including a 5-star best bet on the Chicago Fire at plus 210 against Vancouver.
The Game.
Welcome. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger in for Ray Ratto today and the rest of this week. Someone saying, Damon, welcome to the world of an A's fan. Look, I'm the guy who keeps on doing play-by-play for A's fans about how rough your world is, and I get everybody upset. I got Brody Brazil upset at me.
Does he get upset?
I don't know. But he basically, he's definitely reacting to what I'm saying that, someone who, air quotes, talks sports or sports, whatever he wrote, for him to only, for the first time to talk about the A's all year long through Paul Blackburn's chartered flight, that says an awful lot. First of all, that's not the only thing I've ever said about the A's this year. Pay better attention. Because I've been bagging on this ownership group for the better part of 3 years, and I'm right. Like, there are A's fans who are so involved in their Stockholm syndrome that they can't figure out that I'm more honest to you about your team than your team will ever be honest to you. And look, build Howard Terminal. Do it. Get it done. Joe Lacob would have had it done 6 years ago.
Joe Lacob would have 3 tree houses.
By now, come on. It would have been done. And you'd be rooting for Minaya and Bassett and Simeon and Carpenter or
Matt Olson.
Chapman, but they're all here. Everyone's still here. You got a really good baseball team.
County's in a good mood.
County's happy. Look, I mean, Howard Terminal, I hope it happens. I don't know if your guys got the political will, political capital to grease the skids of how things get done in the Bay Area. You're SF biased media. Hey, I never said the Warriors needed to leave Oracle. They built Chase Center without my permission. And it wasn't like I spoke that into existence. You'll never meet anyone who hates Levi's Stadium more than me. 49ers couldn't give a rip what I said about it.
Why are you so anti-Levi's?
Because it's in Tijuana.
It's not that bad.
And it's also an architectural top to bottom disaster. It looks like it's still being built, Larry. It looks like a construction erector set from the outside.
Damon, my final night at Candlestick, I had to dodge 2 raccoons on the way to my car.
Doesn't matter, man.
Levi's
Candlestick was
Levi's is a palace compared to Candlestick.
Compared to Candlestick, but when you build your palace, it's location, man.
Well, I mean,
it's harder to get in and out of there than it was Candlestick.
This just in, it's sunny in Santa Clara and kind of hot in September.
They did not know that, even though they've been practicing on the field right behind it for the better part of 30 years.
Right.
I mean, how did the sun sneak up on them?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
I don't know.
So anyways, it's it looks like they slapped a Walmart on a bleacher.
Did you ever get with Cavill? I know you guys were talking him out.
No, well, that's
calling him out.
No, I didn't know because
he never.
I invited Dave Cavill to come on and talk about it, and then he wanted to go ahead and turn it into a debate as if I were representing all San Francisco media at that point. I'm only representing myself. And what debate was what side was he going to take? I think it's good to treat your fans like crap because that was my end. It's not good to treat your fans like crap. So that was going to be the debate. And he wanted a moderator and he wanted Brody Brazil to moderate.
Really?
Yes. He wanted Brody Brazil to moderate it. And the whole point was
Dan Rather was busy or
the whole point was you and I have a one-on-one conversation and you don't have somebody with a ticking clock saying, time's up. We got to move on to the next topic now, because all Dave Cavill's going to do when I bring up a real question for him to answer is run out the clock.
Well, and he is not the guy. You're not talking to the guy. And until, when the A's are owned by a billionaire. So until that guy wants to step up to the mic and answer for it, you're talking to Cavill and what's come on.
So anyways, Paul Blackburn took a chartered flight of the Houston Astros, who, are treating their all-stars like all-stars and getting them playing, and a couple family members can hop aboard too. And Paul Blackburn had nothing negative to say about the A's, but he certainly was very, very happy with the gesture that the Houston Astros made to him in his first ever all-star appearance.
I flew with Houston over here with their guys, their charter. It was fun. They made me feel very kind of welcomed and comfortable, and we had some good conversations, some good laughs. It was fun. It was a good time.
How did it come about?
I was just brought to me and asked if I wanted to fly with them, and I said, yeah. If Dusty would allow that, then yeah, of course.
What did it mean to you that the Astros organization wanted to bring you over here to the All-Star game on their charter?
No, it's awesome. It just kind of shows that, within baseball, everyone, it's just kind of like a brotherhood, and everyone kind of respects each other and tries to help each other out. So I'm greatly appreciative for their organization and them letting me tag along over here.
Was it awkward at first at all?
It wasn't awkward. I just felt a little uncomfortable. Everyone was walking on. I have no clue who anyone was. No one probably really knew who I was on there. But no, it was a good time.
If you could speak to the Astros organization right now, what would you like to tell them?
I just want to tell them thank you for letting me get on their charter and finding me a ride over here to LA.
It's from Mark Berman's Twitter feed. He is a
very comprehensive interview there.
Houston. He's a Houston guy, so he wanted a lot of love for the Astros. And look, why wouldn't Paul Blackburn give it to him? They treated him better than his own team did.
He took Blackburn took the high road, but when he said, "Yeah, we shared a few laughs," what he really meant to say is, "We shared a few laughs at the A's expense."
Right.
We joked about what a bunch of cheap asses my team is, and
look, it's real simple. You have to decide whether or not you want to be a first class, a second class, or a no class operation. Not everyone has the means to become a first class operation. So you're a second class operation. You do the very best you can with what you have. And no one ever thinks that for anything other than the money involved, things are, pretty good here. But, you're treated well. People care. People really go out of their way to make you feel special. You're not rendered, you're not working for an organization that says we put the money all back out on the field and we won't even give you a free Pepsi, famous scene in Moneyball.
Right. We got to pay for soda.
Exactly.
David Justice character was like, you got to pay for soda. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Stock my machine for a month.
Real quick question. Do you think Joe Lake would ever let a Golden State Warrior all-star hop on a first class commercial flight to go to an all-star game?
Yeah. On the Rockets flight.
Well, no, Luckily, the Los Angeles Clippers stopped on by to pick these guys up on the way to Utah, which is where the All-Star game will be next week, which is the worst place to ever put an NBA All-Star game humanly possible. In Utah, is this entire franchise is stripping itself down.
Right.
It's going to be the saddest All-Star weekend of all time.
What about when the All-Star game was here and they booed the heck out of the former owner of the Warriors? And that he was booed loudly. Chris Cohan was booed loudly when the Warriors hosted it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Joe Lacob got booed loudly when they retired Chris Mullen's number. And you know what? I mean, I think that guy wanted to win, but that even that's one of the more productive booings any fan, because let Joe know, hey, dude, I know you're the new owner, but all Warriors ownership has ever represented was total buffoonery. So prove us wrong, but you get no love, no accolades until something starts happening.
But they weren't.
Joe Lacob took that. No, he wasn't. They were booing the concept of ownership.
Right. I mean, he was on the next morning with me, and I asked him about that, and he was like, I didn't expect it, but he, should have understood that the culture of the franchise before he arrived was that Chris Cohan was a boob, and that people had no confidence in him, and so he was inheriting that. Those boos that were aimed at Joe were intended for Chris Cohan.
Yeah, no, it was he was caught in he was collateral damage in the moment is what he was. It wasn't really intended for him. He caught strays.
There's some great Rick Barry cuts though. Oh, come on, people! I know this guy. Remember that?
Oh, do I remember it? Hold on one second. I mean,
come on, people!
Come on! Seriously. Come on, people.
Oh my God. Train wreck, live train wreck. It's like you could not keep your eyes off the screen watching that. It was like, oh my God.
Rick didn't help the situation.
No, Rick made it worse.
Come on, people.
Oh, it was bad.
I know this man.
It was really, really bad. 888-957-9570. A mystery guest of real circumstance comes up at 4:15 today here on Damon and Ratto. Larry Krueger, and this is Tony in Fremont. Hello, Tony. What do you got?
Hey, what's up, fellas, man? It's getting a little old, Damon, you bashing the A's every single time. I really think you should preempt any kind of A's talk by saying that you guys are the Giants' sister station. All right. It just gets old, man. Kick a team when it's down. But let's face facts. The last 5 years, the A's and the Giants have probably about done the same, right? And how can you never talk about the cheap Giants? How many
we
years
did. We did. We bagged on them all day yesterday. What are you talking about? First of all, this isn't your local high school team. You got a billionaire who doesn't love you, Tony, that is literally trying to pull your team out of your city. The minute he doesn't get what he wants, he's looking at Vegas already. He's flirting. Like, stop kissing the ass of someone who will never love you back. That is a full, and I have been here for almost 20 years talking about the stadium that never comes. That's it. Why do I keep the heat on? Because that's the only way anything's going to happen. That guy is not going to be embarrassed out of his ownership, but he is a full-on, straight-up incompetent. John Fisher won a genetic lottery and has showed no business acumen in his life that can be proud of. He didn't invent the gap. That was his parents. It was his parents.
Well, and don't rip people who are noticing that you're running for riches when you're when you're a billionaire. And let's be honest about this for what it really is. I mean, the A's have sapped off the general fund of Major League Baseball for a long, long time.
And they knocked them off of it, and then they had to be put back on it.
Right. And what have they done for their fans? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I'm defending the A's, I got to ask myself, what exactly am I defending other than the fact that I love my team and I'm rooting for my team?
Look at it this way. No A's fan loved the A's more than I loved the Cubs and loved the Bears. And their collective ownership makes me so sick. I'm good now. I'm good. I'm leaving this abusive relationship. Come on.
And you're crapping on them, but you know what? What's worse? People who are verbally crapping on them, or people that are just saying, you know what? We're ignoring you altogether. I mean, you know, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference.
Right.
And what Damon is showing here is some passion one way or another.
You deserve better.
Truly, the rest of the market is indifferent. That's far worse.
Right. If anybody, other random human that you could throw a rock at and hit were owning the A's tomorrow, it would get better. The guy who owns the A's is the worst person in the world to own the A's. Daniel Snyder, John Fisher. That's the list of awful ownership. The only thing that John Fisher has over Daniel Snyder is he never played, a franchise game of grab ass with every woman that worked for him. I'll give him that much.
He might be a better human being, but there, you know, as far as how he's run his team, I mean, he's basically just said, you know what? Unless you hand it to me, I'm not spending it. And he's got more money than anybody.
And oh, by the way, welcome everybody to your 4 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey station.
By the way, just no one puff your chest out to me. You're playing 344 baseball. Playing 344 baseball devoid of anyone who's recognizable.
Not only that, you suck by your own choosing. You developed your baseball side, developed all these players. Where did you get the Chapmans and the Olsons? And then you just got rid of them for what? For no reason at all. So all their bleeding is self-inflicted. All the damage they've done to their organization is self-inflicted. I feel terrible for the A's fans. Do you know what it would be like for them to hear us announce that Joe Lacob has successfully orchestrated a purchase of that franchise? It would absolutely be Shangri-La. I mean, in a snap of the fingers, they would go from a nothing team to a viable franchise going forward. So their problem is the stadium, but their problem is larger than that. Their problem is the ownership and their lack of vision. How did the Giants do it? You know what the Giants did in the 90s? They bought a team in 1992. They absorbed $100 million in losses from 92 until 2000, and they got it done. So nobody cares about the labor pain. Show me the damn baby. And the A's have not been able to produce the baby. And so now here they are sapping off the general fund again, threatening Vegas. Now their fans are at their wits' end, just saying, you know what? If you're going to leave already.
Right.
And the media is totally indifferent.
Drawing 6,000 a night. 6,000. I mean, whatever their total is that they say they draw, lop 2,000 off that number for real. I mean, it's
Major League the movie.
It's absolutely the plot happening. Hopefully they're not taking.
Where's Serrano?
Well, they're not hats for bats, but they're not taking John Fisher's dress off one win at a time.
Right.
This is Joe in San Jose. What's going on, Joe?
What's going on, Damon? Let me explain something real quick to these people. Damon Bruce had a show with Trent Baalke. How'd that work out? Damon Bruce 1, Bulky 0. Keep doing what you're doing, Damon. Don't stop. And you know what? Get this guy out of town too. If he wants to go to Vegas, ship him to Vegas. I've been with the A's since Billy Martin. I was a kid. And
great year, 80.
You used to make me pull over on the freeway when you used to get into Bulky peanut butter. So let me tell you something. Just keep doing what you're doing. And all these people that call in, you know what? They don't fill those stands. They don't even go to the stands. They're not the 6,000 that show up. They like to mess with the bagpipes and but watch when the Laker buys them, they'll be there with their shirt on and they're cheering. Woo, woo, woo. They're not hard time.
Hey, you deserve better. You deserve better than you've been treated. A lot of people in the abusive relationship can't identify the abusive relationship. That's why they stay in it.
Did you take down Trent Baalke?
I did.
Did you? I like my linebackers.
Hey, he could draft linebackers, man. He knew what he was doing and kind of defensively, but as everywhere else, there was blind spots. There were a lot of blind spots.
Was there a great Damon Bruce, Trent Baalke moment that I'm unaware of?
Do we have the audio? Would you find that if you could, please, Grandy? So it was a really simple, I was doing like a Tuesday trifecta, right? Remember how I used to do those? And I asked Trent Baalke what his favorite Thanksgiving side dish was. And here we go. Trent, it is up to you to draft 3 side dishes for Thanksgiving. Turkey obviously went number 1 overall. What are your next 3 draft picks?
Is this a serious question?
I'm dead serious about this. Don't dodge this. If you're like, I don't want to talk about mashed potatoes, I mean, I don't know what to do.
You got my voice down pat. What are your 3? Give me your 3 next picks.
To me, honestly, Thanksgiving is nothing more than a vehicle to deliver stuffing. I'm a stuffing guy through and through. Stuffing, I got to have a little mashed potato, and then I got to be honest. I know it's a doubling up on potatoes, but give me a yam as well. Those are my 3. Do you like my picks?
Not really.
No.
How about a W? That's what we want on Thanksgiving. We want a W.
Fair enough. My mom has never put a W on the table, though.
You don't get W's put on the table. You earn them.
Are you seriously dodging my what side dish question?
All right, give me some cranberries and
terrible pick.
How about some green beans?
There you go. I was just happy that he answered the question at that point. I got to turn that off. I was just happy that he was answering the question. Even his pick of cranberries and green beans are terrible draft picks. I mean, that's like you just picked a side dish with a torn ACL.
I wish people could have seen the video when you and I were in the Niner war room on draft night, the year they took AJ Jenkins, and you are the biggest Big Ten honk there is. This kid played at Illinois. You basically gave me that look like, I've never heard of this guy. And then he starts telling us about how I wrote it down in an envelope, and there I was. I don't care if you wrote it 10 times in an envelope and put it in your back pocket, your front pocket. Remember that was his defense for the pick, is that he had written AJ Jenkins' name down and put it in an envelope, like Vontae Mack, no matter what, from draft day. Right. I mean, it was like, what? You just drafted a nothing receiver in the first round, and now you're going to try to sell it to us because you wrote it down on an envelope. Oh, my God.
How pissed off were the Niners at me for reacting like that? Oh, they were pissed. They were.
How confused was Harbaugh when I said, I asked him this tough question. What do you like about AJ Jenkins? I wish I had that audio, because he hemmed and hawed. He's a guy, and we kind of like what we see. And it was like you would have swore after the answer that he'd never seen him before.
I mean, I basically said, I watch Indiana. I'm like the one person in the world who watched Indiana versus Illinois for the last 4 years.
You're like, I've never heard of them.
Like I can talk to you about, Illinois players. Rashard Mendenhall. You want to talk about it?
right.
Come on. I'm like, you just drafted a player who never stood out in a single Big Ten game ever.
Right.
That's who you just drafted.
In the first round.
They did not like it.
But man, you were vindicated on that one.
You're vindicated on a lot of things.
AJ Jenkins.
AJ Jenkins. Good times. Look at us already in Ray hates that so much. But look, there's a lot of things that over the years I've been wrong about. There's no doubt. If you're keeping the scorecard, I got some L's.
What's your biggest loss? Can you think of your biggest loss?
Yeah,
I was not impressed with, wait for it, the Fred Warner draft choice.
Okay.
Because I saw him at BYU, and I'm like, this guy's kind of like a rover. He's not even a linebacker, but man, he has physically, emerged and got stronger, faster, better. I mean, yeah, I was not that impressed by Fred Warner.
By the way, Fred Warner, again, hey, can you be that excited about a BYU linebacker?
Yeah, I mean, when he was kind of a underpowered, drag you down to the ground kind of a guy.
I'm excited about someone else from BYU. Hint.
By the way, Robbie Bosco.
He's next. Fred Warner on what he's seeing out of Trey Lance today from the Rich Eisen show. Since you brought up Fred,
working hard, keeping his head down, staying humble, not letting the outside criticism get to him. I haven't seen him mention it one time. And the times I've seen him on, having to approach the media and the way that he goes about that and letting them know that that's not something that he's worried about. He's worried about the opinion of his coaches and teammates, and just doing the little things right. I think that's what ultimately is going to allow him to be successful in this league.
Fred Warner today on the Rich Eisen show. By the way, someone said, Damon, I do keep your score. And Johnny Manziel over Khalil Mack. All right, got that one wrong.
Did you were all in on Johnny?
You were too. You weren't a Texas A&M shirt.
I know. I love Johnny.
By the way, he looked like he was the Raiders needed a quarterback. And, look at it this way, Khalil Mack, where is he now? Where is he now?
That's a loss.
That did not work out the way it should have. But clearly, Khalil Mack was a lot more significant an NFL entity than Johnny Manziel was. But to me, you're on the wrong side of history on that was I was pro trading Klay Thompson for Kevin Love.
Really?
Well, this was before Klay Thompson became Klay Thompson. You know what I mean?
Right, I know.
And Kevin Love, to me,
there were Warrior people that wanted it.
It was it's a lot harder to find a serious front court player than it is a two guard. What is the easiest position to fill on any basketball team? It's the shooting guard.
There's a lot of shooting guards.
Right. The pick of
not
the litter,
a lot of shooting guards like Klay.
Right. Not now. We have been totally, I've been proven wrong on that one.
Right.
But yeah, that was one of my biggest. They should do this. They didn't do it, and thank God they didn't do it. Of maybe my career out here, that was a big one. Some other people are.
Did you see the video the other night on draft night with the Sacramento Kings fan who was watching the Bagley-Luka draft? And he was rooting for Bagley. Did you see that video?
No.
And the guy, they showed it on draft night. He's like, yes.
What, somebody said,
I didn't want Luka. Oh, I didn't want Luka. I wanted Bagley.
Somebody on the Comcast Business Text line saying Luka Doncic was your worst call. What?
Did you want Bagley? Maybe that's
no. But Luka Doncic is nothing short of one of the 5 best players in the NBA right now. Any franchise would start their franchise with him. What are you talking about? I was wrong on Luka Doncic. The guy's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Our next guest is in the Hall of Fame.
How about that? There's a tease.
Mr. Mystery Guest. If he's holding the phone, he's probably using his left hand. So stick around. That's coming up next here on 95.7 The Game. Damon and Ratto with Larry Krueger in. And if you're looking for all your best 49ers content on 95.7 The Game, text the word 49ers to 20357. You'll find it there.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients.
believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We'll get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we'll take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $69.99. You can learn more about our battery selection at AutoZone.com. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Claim based on data from the NPD Group 2021.
In Novato, partly cloudy overnight, lows into the low 50s.
Weather brought to you by one thing. Cut up six-pack rings and reduce your use of plastic to help keep it out of our waterways and oceans. Join Odyssey, and together, each of us doing one thing makes a greener tomorrow.
Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
Absolutely beautiful day outside. There is no doubt about that. It's going to be a really interesting conversation inside the studio. In a matter of moments, our mystery guest is parking. He's not coming in studio, but he's in his car right now. He'll be parking soon and getting inside, and then we are going to talk to our mystery guest. This is not a bait and switch. I'm telling you, this is an interview you will want to hear, and it's only moments away from actually happening. Larry Krueger is in for Ray Ratto this week, and you're one of the reasons why this interview will happen.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I love talking to this guy, and I value his friendship greatly, and I value him as a player, incredibly. So, yeah, I can't really say that I've had more enjoyable people to talk to through the years than this guy, who always brings it. He's insightful. He's smart. He knows the game cold, and I always left the segments thinking, man, this guy is a Bay Area treasure from the standpoint of he knows what he's talking about, but he also knows the vibe of this area. So yeah, does he know the teams? Yeah. Does he know the sport that he played? Yeah. But he has also invested in our community and wants to see it thrive. And so just some of my most enjoyable segments of radio the last few years have been with this guy.
So it will be a 49ers related guest. We're going to keep, there's plenty of hints out here, but we'll see if everyone gets it by the time he joins us. I will say that today, Deebo Samuel's trainer was on Instagram working out with his guy and said this.
Yes, sir. We working. We about to get paid. No. He about to get paid.
Well, yeah, you're about to get paid too. There's no doubt you're going to get broken off a little something. I really am surprised that the 49ers, who, there are certain teams that go about their way of doing business. This is the way we do business. But every now and then you run into a level of player that should take your standard operating procedure and change it just a little. I'm surprised that this team seems cool with an awkward Deebo Samuel situation.
Because it's only awkward on the public side. It's not awkward. I don't think it's awkward between Deebo and Kyle. I don't think it's awkward between Deebo and his teammates. And I don't think it's awkward necessarily even between Lynch and Deebo. I think it's just a simple situation where Deebo is a great competitor. And so he was willing to do anything and everything for the win when the season was going on. But then when it came down to negotiations, as we know, the NFL pays wide receivers differently than running backs. And he was used as kind of a combo. And so I'm sure his agent was like, you know what? Let's forget about the running back because now we're talking money. I'd like to be paid like a top tier wide receiver. And the 49ers probably had their own concerns because of the way they were utilizing him.
Well,
but I think things are ironed out. I do believe you're going to see Deebo here for an extended period. I don't think he's going to be dealt.
Well, it'd be nuts to deal him, especially as you're trying to develop a young quarterback. You don't want to remove any level of the biggest missing ingredient in not just the NFL, but all sports is, having everybody on the same page because you played together a few years. Football used to be dotted with a level of coordination that only comes through reps that not you get after a few practice sessions together, but after you get a few years together. That's when the magic can really start to happen. And Deebo Samuel is a guy who dealt with some early injuries that kept him from reaching the potential that he obviously reached last year. As a bona fide wide receiver, though, I mean, he's a number one in a lot of cities, and he's certainly the number one in this city. So there is no reason to not give him number one money.
Well, you can only pay so much money. I think ultimately when push comes to shove, I don't think he's going to get mid 70s or 70 plus million guaranteed. I don't. But I don't think he's going to get 30. I think he's probably going to get 50 to 55. And I think he'll probably be happy with that. And I think also what you saw in April.
It was the Christian Kirk deal that just screwed up the market.
Trent Baalke. That's right. Trent Baalke. I like Christian Kirk. They gave Christian Kirk way too much money, and they raised that bar for everybody. But ultimately, I mean, that's what we've seen this offseason. Look at the wide receiver movement. Look what the wide receivers are getting paid. But I think Deebo's going to get paid a little south of that. But I think also the drafting of Ty Davis-Price and the drafting of Danny Gray maybe takes a little bit of the workload off of Deebo's plate. I do expect you'll see the 49ers continue to use him as a dual threat. I just don't think you're going to see him running 3rd and 1 between the tackles. I don't think you're ever going to see him running short yardage, goal line in the A gaps.
Yeah,
I just don't think you're going to see that anymore.
As a guy who was running a ball as a wide receiver, he wasn't running gadget plays, man. He was running straight up A-B gap. It was
against Green Bay. Yeah. He ran between the tackles a lot in that game.
And if he wants to do that less, I don't blame him. At the same time, you're so good at it. I don't blame Kyle Shanahan for wanting more of that. I really don't. I've been told, and it's been a while since I checked back in on the source who told me straight up that there was some friction between Deebo and Kyle, that this is not just money. It's a level of, do I get respect? Do I get a Tuesday off, a Veterans Day? Can I get a little bit more love based on I'm giving you far beyond what is a normal ask from a wide receiver? And he didn't really feel that. So I
question that. I question the validity of that. And I'll also say this. I was told by a really good source over a year ago that there would never be a second contract for Deebo with the 49ers. So we'll see where it goes. I don't think my source was right, and I don't think that source was right. I think Kyle loves Deebo. I think he should. I think Deebo is like one of Kyle's very favorite players, and I think Deebo has got great respect in the room because he shows up to win.
But don't you think Kyle, if he does have that love, has literally played that as close to the vest as possible? And it doesn't feel like that would need to be as close to the vest as possible relationship. Anyway, we thank you for sticking around for Mr. Mystery Guest, who for the first time in a very long time stops on by 95.7 The Game. As a matter of fact, Steve Young, the last time that you were on this station was the week leading up to Super Bowl 50, when you were nice enough to sit down with me on Media Row, and then Donovan McNabb crashed our interview. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, and I don't know why he did that. It seemed disrespectful, but I have to live with it. Well, but I look, it's not on purpose, Damon. It just is. It's just it's how things roll. So I'm glad to be back with you. And Larry, Larry's been a friend for a long time, and so I'm glad to talk to both of you.
Well, that's the thing. It just shows that when a friend asks for something, that you absolutely deliver. And I understand there's an awful lot of business that comes between us during the football season, but it's not the football season. And you also reached out to Larry when I think he could have used a little picking up, and you picked him up. And that's really cool, man. I'm impressed, and I know it meant a lot to Larry. He's not about to gush over it, so allow me to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say Larry's not going to gush over anything. So Larry's a tough guy, but we built a friendship, and so I just want to let him know that we're in it together. I feel the same way, Damon. We're in it together. We do what we can and move along. Like we're all one thing's for sure. We all have a passion for sports, and we all love to chat about it. My house, as you guys probably know, not full of sports talk. And so, for me, this is, cathartic to kind of get on and chat about sports.
Well, Steve, I'll say this, and I told you this before, but I just loved our segments last year. I loved what you were doing with your Forever Young Foundation for the Bay Area throughout the pandemic. I was so floored by that. And I could tell in all those conversations that it really came from the heart for you. And I love how invested you are post-career in our area, but also in the 49ers and in Trey Lance too. And that's really where I wanted to start today. You talked about Trey and his development, and I know you've had a chance to spend some time with him. He actually referenced it at minicamp just a few weeks ago. Can you tell us the nature of, did you guys get together on the phone? Did you guys watch film, field work? How was it?
No, we were down at the facilities doing a workout, and we got a chance to just chat around just, first of all, get to know each other a little bit, but also just tell some stories about, give context for like whatever your fate. Like I said, any footprints that you see ahead of you, they're mine. Like there's no way that you're going to go through something in the next 10 years, specifically in San Francisco, that I don't have some context for, or have some history with, or some unusual situation from being on the front page of the Chronicle when they blamed the Gulf War on me in 1991 to, there's all kinds of, so there's nothing, that it's funny, but it's not funny kind of thing. And so I think Trey I just want to let him know that part of it, that there's whatever path you're on, there's people that have kind of walked it in not exactly the same way, and just some context for how to have some resilience to it, not try to focus on the things that are most important. And, and I remember chatting with Jimmy when he first got here. Like I'm very open to giving whatever I can to pay it forward. People did that for me. And so I had a nice chat and threw the ball a little bit. And I tried to show him that I could still throw it, just that, the things that are really important, Larry, is to show Trey Lance that Steve Young can still throw the ball.
Exactly.
Whose arm got tired first?
Yeah. Was there arm fatigue?
Yeah, right. I had no fatigue issues.
Did he have any fatigue issues, Steve?
No, he didn't. I got more onto that. I got more information on that. And this is one thing about Trey, and I said this last week. One of his great qualities is his attention to detail and his earnestness in doing the job, like really laser focused, and he's got the intellect to do it as well. So he's focused, and he has the horsepower. And so in that way, he's there's not going to be a detail he misses. He's not going to have things not memorized. That's a double negative. He's going to be able. That's why I say I have high confidence in him processing, on the field. And so in that earnestness, sometimes like any good quality, you can have too much of it, and you can be so earnest that you're so in. And I think, the Philadelphia Eagles draft. Now we went to Indianapolis. Quarterback, help me quick.
Eagles quarterback who went to Indy.
Carson Wentz.
Wentz.
So Carson, I felt like had the same issue a little bit in that he's a perfectionist. He had the ability to be perfect, and in that perfectionist effort, it kind of almost drove him into the ground. And so I really want to have Trey not feel like, that everything has to be perfect, or that, because he has that tendency in him. And that's not that's part of the solution. Part of the reasons why the 49ers took him is because he has that processing power, that earnestness about the job. He wants to get to wants to have all the data. He's not, and that's one of his talents. It's one of his God-given talents. And so in that way, you don't want to take away from it. But I've seen it where when it's overdone and people don't know when to stop, and when Mitch Trubisky had a little bit of this as well. And so, and I don't want to see Trey trying to be perfect, trying to live up to the ghosts of the past or even the ghosts of the present, and trying to do all that and live and trying to do it all at once.
Steve Young with us here on 95.7 The Game. Can a quarterback room exist, Steve, with a proven and very much liked quarterback like Jimmy? I mean, that feels like that first 2 or 3 game losing streak, should it come around, because a second-year quarterback is, maybe just struggling while the rest of the team around him is very much built like a win-now football team. It feels like a really good way to divide a locker room, whether they wanted to divide it or not.
Hey, Damon, let me ask you this question. What's different if he's not there?
The object in the rearview mirror, is it
Super Bowl team? This is a Super Bowl team. People believe that. And the quarterback who everyone's focused on and staring at day in and day out, and he's struggling. Yes, it is more complex with Jimmy standing there. There's no question. I get that. But what I would say to Trey is that situation is not necessarily that much harder than the fact that you're struggling and the whole team's staring at you, the whole town's staring at you. You're not doing the job, and you've got to start doing the job. Like, I guess your point is, why make it that much harder when it's already hard, which I appreciate. But at some level, but the thing is do you really think that Jimmy? The issue that really comes down is, then does Jimmy play, right? Because that's when he's sitting there, like, he's going to take. You can't just have a guy struggle and not have someone on the bench who can take his job. So that's the question for management right now, and for John and Kyle is, do you want the ability to put Jimmy in the game to replace Trey when he struggles?
Right. It just feels like,
okay with that. If you're okay with that and all that entails, then that's not a terrible place to be, to have backups, to have other solutions. It doesn't necessarily mean it's great for the future of your young quarterback. Doesn't mean it's great for stability in the locker room. To your guys' point, it does fracture locker rooms. It can cause lots of grief. But the locker room showed pretty strong resilience last year, just, with inklings of this. So I don't know. I because I grew up in 6 years of it with Joe and the enormity of it all, I'm less sensitive than maybe you are to the whole drama. I feel like the drama, in the end, the drama did bring out the best of us. And in some ways, I still believe creative, not toxic personalities. Trey is not toxic personality. Jimmy is certainly not a toxic personality. So, what in the end, what bad could happen? You heard Jed say that. Was it in February when he said, "Hey, look, we did this with Joe and Steve. It's not that big a deal." Like, you've heard the owner tell you that he's not against it.
Steve Young with us here. Garoppolo, even as harshest of critics would have to agree, he is a professional of the highest degree. And as you look at him taking care of his profession and his career, would you advise him to exist now on the 49ers timeline and tempo of business, or just demand his outright release? Like, what do you think is better for him at this time?
It feels like he knows that he's done he was a good soldier last year and did everybody a service and helped the locker room stay together. And they went almost the distance. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And some real drama. I mean, in LA, that in the final week, I mean, it's just some great stuff. And then, there's going to be some people around the 49er facility that will say, man, did he screw us with this injury? Like, he should have told us, or he should have, so there's this piece of the puzzle around getting healthy, and then some puts and takes, positive last season, not great about the injury. I think the number one thing is get healthy, then prove it. That's what has to happen for everybody. Get healthy and then go prove it, whether it's in a preseason game, whether it's in preseason practice, whether it's in private workout, prove that you're healthy. Once that day comes that he's proven to be healthy, then I think probably Jimmy should say to the 49ers, okay, what's the deal? And if they kind of look into the sky and then I think that's when he says, look, I've done my part, and I really appreciate my release. And you've scoured the world for some kind of value. You've looked for any kind of opportunities for trades. And short of, hey, look, Jimmy, we want you here on the team. We want to pay you. We want you to be a backup. And Jimmy says yes. I mean, short of that, I feel like get healthy, show the world that you're healthy, give the team a minute to kind of react to that, and with the rest of the league to react to that, and then, days, not weeks later, say, look, there's nothing happening, just release me. I suspect that's what I would think about doing.
Steve, I have no concerns about Trey, the person. I know they got the right person. I think the 49ers at this point know that they got the right person. But now let's transfer from that to the player. What concerns do you have as far as Trey Lance, the player? I know people have talked about his accuracy and questioned it. I was at the minicamp. I thought his accuracy looked pretty good. So overall, I probably have some questions about his game, but I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about his game.
Yeah, it's hard because, Larry, we're learning. Like, we learn a lot in the practices. Like, we're redefining Trey every 30 throws.
Sure.
Because it's just not that much to go on. And so I agree with you. The person and the person processor on the field. Half of the two things you got to do in the NFL generally, and true for quarterback in general: process and deliver the ball. And there's a lot to each one of those. I get that, but processing Trey is check the box in my mind already, even as a rookie and even as a second player.
Steve, were you surprised
it's delivering the ball? And I said this a month or two ago. I'm not saying that. I don't know if it's not a supreme quality today. And I believe that it can become such, but I think that's a work in process. So nobody's like Jimmy is an A+ deliverer of the football. He might not deliver the right place, right time, but as far as delivering it, that's where the processing thing comes in. But getting the processing done, finding the right guy, and then delivering it, that's where Trey, needs to prove to all of us that he's a elite deliverer of the football. I really believe he's already an elite processor of quarterbacking. Now it's just show me that you're an elite deliverer. And the truth is, you say you don't think he is, Steve. I'm like, let's just see him throw another 200 throws in games, but I suspect that's where the growth is going to really show up.
Steve, were you surprised at all how little he got used by Kyle Shanahan, who we know, is the sort of coach who draws up napkin plays everywhere he goes when he sits down for dinner? I was a little bit surprised that he didn't use last year as an opportunity to get him just a touch more seasoning here or there.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. Everyone knows how positive I am on Kyle and his innovation and really kind of best place in the league to play a quarterback. I told people many times, publicly and privately, if I could be myself as a young player right now and choose where to go, I would go here. And that's not because I was here. That's absolutely where I'd be. But I was surprised. I thought that Jimmy, because of his personality, would be open to figuring out ways to get Trey on the field. I thought there would be a package of Trey Lance domination plays that Kyle could come up with. That didn't happen. Then even when he had chances to play, it seemed like he didn't want him to engage in a full game plan, running around. What did he run against the Cardinals 16 times out of the huddle? It was like, so there's some oddities about it that makes you wonder if Kyle believed that he was, how much he believed. It's just hard to know. Based on what you watch and what you see, you think everything feels like he should be getting more opportunities and playing more, but it didn't come. And I don't know if Kyle's, to me, Kyle needs to win. He knows he's been knocking on the doors of Super Bowls. He knows he has the team to do it. If there's a way to go get a Super Bowl, he's going to try to do it. And the fact that he didn't use Trey last year unless he was pushed for it, I don't want to say telling, because it feels like we're in a good spot right now based on no gameplay in the 22 season. But it does, your question, I think where you're going is, it felt odd, and it did feel odd to me as well.
How does Trey become the leader of the 49ers? And when I say that, I mean truly authentically the leader. And how did you do it? Because, you walked into a locker room that wasn't divided. They were all with Joe. You know what I mean? In this locker room, there's some guys that are probably with Trey. There might be some guys with Jimmy. He's now trying to establish himself as a leader, but he has to do it authentically or the guys don't buy in. How does he go about that?
Number one is to do the work. You're not going to get anybody to follow you if you're not doing the work.
Number two, every time you're under the gun in the media or on the field, and what I mean is when the lights are on, when everybody's looking at you and they're looking for your reaction, something bad's happened, you've lost a game, you've thrown an interception, you're struggling, something's gone haywire, practices, games, in the media, post-game, during the week, never allow the I call it mitigation, so that explaining all the reasons why things are going haywire. Own it. Be the one that does the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees work, Russell Wilson. That they own it. They don't pawn it off. They're not subtly letting you know that the receiver turned the wrong way. You've got guys back. So when it matters, they know that Trey is good for it. And I think that's why Jimmy was such a hit in the locker room, is because he was really good at that. And what was that, number 3? I can't remember. And then after you've kind of handled all those things, you got to go win. You got to win ball games. And you can do all those other things really well, and it'll give you a place to survive, but you will not thrive and lead the locker room until you win. And once you start winning, then I think it feeds on itself. And unfortunately in San Francisco, you can go to championship games and lose, and that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It gives you more time, but you have a Super Bowl ready team. You need to go win the Super Bowl, and until then, you're not going to keep you from leading the team. You'll be a leader of the team once you do those fundamental things and start winning. You'll lead the team.
Hall of Fame quarterback Steve Young here. What a treat on 95.7 The Game. And I'm just going to warn you that this is the one question. If you don't answer it carefully, Steve's going to get aggregated and get you in trouble. So I'm setting it up for you here. Are there any amount of raw tools that you think could ever be more important in a quarterback than being a 68% passer in a rookie season? Because that's what Mac Jones just did in New England. And I looked this up. In your 13-year career, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the history of football, you had a completion percentage better than 68% only twice in your 13-year career. I really thought that Mac Jones was more built to run the system Kyle really wants. I think Kyle wants his system to be a star, not a quarterback who can make plays off schedule, because as an offensive genius, he just doesn't like being off schedule. I think that fair or foul, he is going to be compared to Mac Jones an awful lot in his career.
Very fair. I think that the interest that Kyle had in Mac was real. The exhaustive work that gets done to finally make the pick is books are written, and you have to at some point make a choice. And so their choice was made, and because their interest was real with Mac, it'll always be connected. Like Phillip Rivers and Eli, there's things about this thing that, the history that connects you. And so so the question is not inflammatory, it's real. But again, what I would tell anybody, young players, just play great football, and I hope Trey doesn't spend any time on that. Hope nobody spends time on that, because, it doesn't matter. It doesn't help you play great football. And that's all that matters. And so, for me, Mac was he was an elite processor. We talk about processing, and has enough of a delivery system that's good enough. The reason why he wasn't the first pick up in the draft, because he wasn't as an elite, a dynamic player that can move around in this era. But this is an era of a less sophisticated football that allows for 75% passer. The game has significantly changed. I'm not trying to make an excuse for the fact that his throwing for 68% and I only did it once.
Right. It sounds like you're trying to justify your own incompletions here, Steve.
But I want to be honest, so that people who are listening need to be honest as well. The game has changed so dramatically that I really believe that Mac coming out in 2021 was not the prototype for the future of the next 10 years.
Okay.
There's so many yards to go get. Free yards from a quarterback spot, so many first downs, so many touchdowns, so many
game-changing plays, to not have that, to actually take somebody that does not have that in 2021 felt off. But that does not mean that Mac is not going to absolutely thrive in a less sophisticated world than it is than 20 years ago, to be able to be a 75% passer. And to your point, getting in the right system, multiple Super Bowls, multiple Pro Bowls, multiple even MVPs are in Mac's visibility. But when you sat back in 2021 in the warmth of April or May or June, trying to figure out what the next 10 years in the league looks like, you did not necessarily lean in to somebody who wasn't a dynamic. And when I say dual threat, that's a college term. Dual threat means is you are an elite passer who can run. Because if you're not an elite passer in the pros, there's no threat. So a true dual threat pro quarterback is an elite passer who has legs. In college, it's not necessarily as demanding, and so then that one's more a runner a guy who can run around, who can throw. So to be somebody in the next 10 years who plays in the NFL and thrives as a dual threat in those terms, needs to be, number one, an elite passer of the football, and then they can run. And because Trey has that potential, it's hard not to lean in.
What I loved about the way you played the position, Steve, was the unbelievable urgency that you played your whole career with. You played your whole career with this kind of third down goal line urgency that I don't know that I would instruct people to play that way, but it worked for you. And I thought it defined you. And when I look at Trey, I see a little bit of the same traits. It's like, I'm not sure that Trey has the appropriate fear of the defensive players. And I think that's kind of an important thing going forward. Yeah. How did you kind of balance that? Because you would take on anybody as a young player, but eventually you learn those lessons. I think that's a key lesson for him if he's going to be on the field consistently for this team.
Well, Larry, you got to remember, when I took the field, Joe was standing there. And in some ways, I was playing to try to impress Joe. Like in other words, if Joe's out here, the ball would be moving. If Joe was out here, we'd be scoring points. That's in my mind. I was like, it wasn't hard to make that. And so for me, the urgency was just standing there, right? I saw him, he was 15 feet away. And so in that way, it wasn't like I was trying to be him, because I learned very quickly that's not a really effective way to attack the problem. But as far as productivity, you better be productive. And so early on, the run against the Vikings was absolutely a function of that urgency of like, look, we got to move the ball. And I don't know that I'm really smart or sophisticated enough to really move it, the veteran way. So I'm going to move it however I can. And so that's why Trey's going to have to use every inch and breadth and depth of his athletic ability, both throwing and running, to move the ball and to win games. And the urgency there, and Larry, I think that there's going to be a higher risk of hurting himself. He's already done it once last year with his hand running around. There's going to be a risk because he's not going to step back trying to figure out the long game. In many ways, his urgency is because it's a short game. I got to win this game. I've got to win the next one. I got to win the next one. And not that that's not true all your whole career, but you do have a way of kind of stopping a little bit of that, over urgency. But early on here, I would tell him, if I could talk to him every day and say, hey, don't be so urgent. Don't run into linebackers. Be careful. Slide. Get out of bounds. Like, yeah. It'd be just like me. Yeah. Good. Got it. Glad to help. Thanks for the tip. And then I'd go do whatever I possibly could within my capabilities to go move that football, because the expectation is that we're going to Super Bowl, and I have no time to waste. In fact, I always laugh. I say quarterbacks, they're the number one in fourth quarter comebacks. I'm like, frick that. I don't want to have any fourth quarter comebacks.
Exactly. I want to be leading.
Yeah, feet up on the ottoman.
I want this game over at halftime. And Larry, you have always had the knack at kind of distilling some of the things that I don't necessarily think about or, have spent a lot of time at, but really truthful distillations of who I was I was out from at warm-ups to get a lead and to get this thing over with, because there was no comfort in close ball games or close losses, or almost like there was not, like, young players in the NFL, I think, somehow take solace in, oh, he's playing pretty good. Oh, it was close. It wasn't his problem. It wasn't his fault. Oh, this team needs to be more supportive. And they live in that space for a couple of years, and then pretty soon, they have to own it, and then they're not ready for it. I'd much rather go my way, and what you're asking Trey to do is let's go. Let's go now, and let's give everything you own, and then over time figure out ways to regulate and govern a little bit more safely. But forget it. Right now, let's go.
I'll tell you, I just felt my jaw get more square while you were answering that question. That was great. It's Steve Young from When Men Were Men football and the NFL. Brian Greasy coming straight out of the Monday Night Football booth. And I'm guessing you got to know Brian a little bit all the time that you spent.
Sure, I really like Brian.
He's got one of the big quarterbacking gigs now. Is he the right guy for the job?
You know what? Brian comes from a different place. And I, and he played a different game. So in that way, I liken it to Patrick Mahomes playing with Alex Smith for that season, and Patrick being the, kind of the gambler, the street fighter, the guy that can do everything. And then Alex is, and I'm overstating it, but Alex is the do it by the book, be managed, not as a game manager, but manage play to play to get the most out of each play. Let's be super efficient. And that's one of the great things about Alex. And so having Patrick see Alex in person was super important. And I think that affected the way that he thought about the game. And even to this day, I would say to Patrick, you can be you're already one of the greats. If you'd probably be the greatest player ever played if you can hold two things in suspense. One is, I am the most dynamic player that's been around for a long time. And two, I am the greatest manager of the efficiency of the game that's ever been. And that's where he, that's not because it's not a strong suit. It's not what he wants to do game to game. You saw the playoff game with the Bills. You saw all the explosiveness and the enormity of what he can accomplish as a player, Patrick. And then you also saw the leaking of oil and just the basics, the fundamentals of just doing the efficiencies. And if he can, so he still has stuff to do there. And I can't remember the first part of your question that got me going here, but for Trey, it's really making sure that he gets the efficiency. He's going to be the dynamic player, but it's getting the efficiencies, that the down to down, doing the smart thing, dropping the ball off, take the open guy in the flat, take the first 3 yards, don't overthink it. And just be a super efficient. And people say game manager is a negative. It's a knock. 50, 60% of the game, 70% of times is doing that really well. And then the other 30% is this spectacular art that we applaud and we honor and we give accolades and MVPs and everything else. But if you think about underneath it, 60, 70% of it is just being that great game manager.
I got one last one for you, buddy. I appreciate you coming on. I really do. And the last, Tom Brady's dominated the last decade, right? He's got 5 Super Bowl appearances. He's got 4 Super Bowl wins. And there's a lot of good young quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Burrow, Josh Allen, Mahomes, to name a couple, or, name a few. I'm really bullish on both the 49ers and the Jets, because I really believe in Trey Lance's future. And I really believe that Zach Wilson found another level in the second half of last year. And I think you're going to see more of that this year. Those are the 2 young guys that I think could crash that party going forward. Who do you see outside of the big 3 of Burrow, let's say Allen and Mahomes? Who's a young quarterback that you think, man, this guy's going to have a great decade ahead?
Justin Herbert, right? I mean, you got to add him. He's already a proven commodity in my mind. So there's those 4. If Deshaun Watson can ever get on the field, he's got that kind of talent. Lamar Jackson. Personally, I said this many, many times, he's damned in the system that they're running. He has to be given opportunities to mature as a thrower of the football, and they just don't ask him to do it. I think he's completely capable. And if he could get those opportunities, I think he'd be in that mix as well. but you've got this dynamic players that can go get all those yards I talked about, all those first downs, all those touchdowns that change games and tilt fields. And it could be a one-man show in today's game. The quarterback position's never been as dynamic and never been as important than it is today. And so you've talked about what did you say to me? Well, Tom Brady's not that, can't move around. Aaron Rodgers doesn't do that much anymore. How are they dominating? They're dominating because they're taking it. They grew up in a sophisticated era, and they're taking advantage of a less sophisticated era with their expertise. And that's why Tom says to himself, look, as long as my arm keeps moving, I can play forever. And it's really true because the game has changed that much. But really, in the end, you're talking about dynamic players that are going to be super fun to watch. And if you're going to talk about the AFC West, you can see Russell Wilson in that mix now. Russell Wilson is a tough out.
Yeah.
Seattle has no chance now. With Russell Wilson, they have a chance. Denver had no chance. Now they have a chance. And so that AFC West, you're going to have to be 3-3 or 4-2 to even sniff something into the future. And I can't wait to see some of those games. But you got players that are going to be really tough to beat, all kind of packed in that division, except for Josh Allen.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us. It meant a lot to Larry. It meant a lot to us. It meant a lot to the station. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're great. And I really appreciate you guys. So I can't say any time because things get hairier and get into the season, but it's fun to talk. And you guys, to be honest with you, I always said this about Larry. Asked pointed, tough questions that I think always get me thinking, and you do as well. So I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve Young here on 95.7 The Game. Oh, that's going to piss off the other side of the street. I love it. We're brought to you by Fremont Bank, full service banking, no compromises.
What's up, everybody? Nick Costos here with the Sports Betting Minute, brought to you by Bet River Sportsbook, your hometown sportsbook. Pro Football Futures Market, Kansas City's win total.
HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey station. Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back to Damon and Ratto, indeed. But the reason why we just had Steve Young on is because Larry is in for Ray Ratto. And obviously, the two of you carved out quite a bit of a conversation and a friendship when you had him on as a weekly guest across the street, Larry. And one of the things that you told me is that when it went wrong across the street for you, through no fault of your own, even though going up against Damon Bruce has got to be a bear.
No comment.
But look, what I thought was super cool was that he basically told you, Larry, I think you just got jobbed. And if there's ever anything I can do for you, I'll do that for you. And so when we were talking about it, I said, well, ask him to come on the show then. And you're like, all right, knowing that's something that, he's very much team them, not on our team, but he decided to do that for you, which I think is a level of getting personal loyalty above and beyond brand loyalty. And I think that's really cool about him.
He's a very authentic dude, and that's what I love about Steve. He's real. And I loved doing the segments with him. I think he is the best interview in the Bay Area. I mean, I think, and if we could get Draymond Green in here, that might be a close second. But I think Steve is as good an interview as you're going to find.
Yeah.
And what I really loved was his Forever Young Foundation, where he would shout out these people. Sometimes it was during the pandemic, but we continued it, right on through. I mean, actually, you can say the pandemic's still going on, obviously. But he would find these organizations that were doing great things for our society, little things that maybe needed to be brought to the attention of the masses. And, we would throw them out in the segment. And then, when you're talking football with the guy, I mean, a lot of the great dialogue we had last year was with that Joe Montana Peacock documentary. And so we're reliving the history of the two of them and the history of the dynasty. And I would ask him some really tough questions about what it was like for him, and just to try to, peel the onion a little bit. And he just always went with it, always, was so gracious and also, but just so candid. I mean, when you have somebody who's smart and they're candid, and their heart's in the right place, man, I want that guy in the radio every single day. Every single day you can find me somebody who's smart and whose heart's in the right place and they're candid about their true feelings. Really, really golden stuff. Almost nothing that Trey Lance is going to endure, Steve Young couldn't comment on. And you know how much people right now we got a little glimpse of Trey and he's the leader going forward. There's so many people that want insights into him. And Steve will tell you when he can tell you. And then he'll tell you, like, I still got to watch. I said it to you. I still got to watch 20 or 30 more snaps. I got to watch more because we've seen glimpses of Trey. So we're all kind of like learning about this young quarterback, but then we're also gleaning information that he gleaned through an entire career in this profession. And I just have the highest respect for him. So, Steve, if you're out there, thanks for coming on. You helped me out, of course, making me look good, but also, I love talking to you. If we were neighbors, I'd be the guy leaning over the fence going, hey, what'd you pay for that mower? Just hoping to start a conversation. Right. How'd your kid do on the SAT? Let's just start talking, because Steve's a dude. At the end of the day, he's a dude. And he's a good guy to talk to. And I hope the audience enjoyed it. And judging from the text line, man, there's an awful lot of people that and I think this is his best medium. I mean, Steve's on TV, Steve's in commercials, but in radio where you can let your hair down, where you have time, you don't have a producer in your ear say, Steve, hurry it up,
30 seconds.
Wrap it up. Give me your, he's an intelligent guy. And I think this is his best medium. And so I think he understands that. So I think he embraces it. And, thanks for coming on, Steve. I really appreciate it.
I think radio has always been the most powerful medium to deliver a message because you're not talking to the masses, and there's very much, and it is a little bit of an illusion. But when you hear, it's not about talking to a mass audience. It's about one voice talking directly to you. And he's great at, here's what I have to say, and I'm going to say it directly to you. It's not going to feel like a broad statement for the general public. It's a specific thing that I'm telling you about. And he's great at that. And radio allows you to really concentrate on the message because you're not being distracted by a graphics package or, a highlight package that puts up and underneath it,
Right.
So, it's great that he came on today. And I think that one of the, there's a lot of very, very nice comments. Postman and Capitola could listen to that guy talk football all day. Way to pull the strings, Krueger. The best here is from a guy who understands how radio works. And he says, Larry, nice flex. Yeah, you just spike the football. You just spike the football a little bit. So Good for you. Ian Rappaport, while we were talking to Steve Young, had this to say about Jimmy Garoppolo.
I'm told Jimmy Garoppolo saw Dr. Neil Elatrash, the respected surgeon who did his surgery to repair the torn capsule in his throwing shoulder earlier in this offseason. That was over the last several days. He is progressing extremely well, working with a physical therapist every day, doing exactly what he needs to be done. It is all positive, and the expectation is he will be fully cleared. In other words, able to make all the throws 40 yards down the field and more at about mid-August. That is the expectation. I'm told the 49ers are thrilled with where Jimmy Garoppolo is as far as his health. The rotator cuff, that is expected to be stronger when he gets through all of this. But anyway, we are not going to get any answer on where he is going to be playing until he's fully and finally physically cleared.
Ian Rappaport, NFL Network. So he's been throwing. You know for a fact that other teams are monitoring these throws. And look, the homework on Garoppolo, team to team around this league, has already been done. It's just going to be a mess. It's going to be a decision of, does he fit what we're looking for out of a quarterback in our competitive timeline right now? And teams that you're not even thinking of, like you said, yesterday, New York Giants kind of got thrown into the conversation. Teams that that have yet to endure a quarterbacking injuries. And, when are quarterbacking injuries going to start? The answer is soon, boys and girls. We are playing preseason football games in 16 days. 16 days is the Hall of Fame game.
Somebody reports to camp like next week, right? I believe there's somebody. Is it the Raiders are going to the Hall of Fame game?
Well, that's the thing. The Raiders are in the Hall of Fame game.
So they report a little earlier.
Yeah. So there is an awful lot that is about to happen around not just Jimmy Garoppolo, but the entire NFL. And once that carousel starts spinning, there's no stopping it. So something will happen with Jimmy. I thought Steve offered an interesting answer when I basically asked, what is better for Jimmy Garoppolo, to wear the good soldier's uniform with the Niners for as long as they ask him to, or to just say, hey, I've already said goodbye in a press conference and enough is enough. And I want out now. And it's better off for my career to demand my release than just sit around and be good soldier for you once again. And it sounded like Steve thought the minute Jimmy Garoppolo can take hold of his career and steer it his own way again, he's better off doing that than anything on the Niners timeline.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I read today, or we talked about it yesterday, but yesterday it was David Carr on the NFL Network who kind of threw out the possibility of the New York Giants. Then I went home and I saw that Mike Tannenbaum, who I put a lot of credibility in, Tannenbaum, former general manager of the New York Jets, is now on ESPN. He also linked the Giants and a potential trade for Garoppolo. He brings up the fact that maybe Daniel Jones could be in the trade. The Giants did not pick up Daniel Jones' fifth-year option. He's set to hit the open market as soon as next March. So they're saying Brian Daboll, the new head coach of the Giants, who comes from Buffalo, that they don't, if they really had any interest in Daniel Jones, they may have picked up that fifth-year option. They didn't. So he's kind of the belief that maybe Garoppolo could go in a trade for Daniel Jones. and that Jones could come here. That's interesting from a standpoint of Jones is a talent. Jones is a big kid with a lot of mobility and a lot of physical ability.
His legs do talk.
Oh, he's fast.
Yeah.
He's fast. And he's, he played for David Cutcliffe at Duke. He's obviously not gotten it done with the Giants, but how much of that is Daniel Jones? How much of that is the New York Giants, having maybe one of the NFL's worst offensive lines and a Saquon Barkley out for the year, lots of injuries at receiver. He has not been surrounded by a good cast at all. If I'm the 49ers, we're thinking draft pick compensation, and that's probably what they'll get for Jimmy if the trade is consummated. But in a lot of ways, Daniel Jones would be very intriguing. You could rehab Daniel Jones in Kyle's system and maybe have something there. I'm not saying that he's going to be special. Trey's still the guy here. But as far as rebuild him to the point where a year from now, you could potentially either extend him or potentially move him. I just think that's an interesting name.
It would be an interesting asset.
Yeah.
More interesting asset than Tyrod Taylor.
Well, and I like Tyrod Taylor a lot as far as a backup to Trey. But if you're just looking at, your quarterback room and you're thinking, hey, what young quarter? I mean, if you want to build up your roster, invest in some quarterbacks, build up their talent and build up their reputation and then pawn them because there's always more jobs than there are quarterbacks. So that one's kind of interesting if he were to come here.
I think one of the most interesting things that Steve Young shared was when, I asked him, are you surprised that we didn't get more Trey Lance? Not even in a way of a desire to have a skullduggery sort of advantage over an opponent, like, oh, you're expecting for Garoppolo. We threw, we
the
had
Trey package,
something for the Trey package. And Steve Young had this to say about being surprised that he didn't see as much Trey Lance as he expected to, which I know is something that we talked about almost infinitely across Sports Talk Radio.
But I was surprised. I thought that Jimmy, because of his personality, would be open to figuring out ways to get Trey on the field. I thought there would be a package of Trey Lance domination plays that Kyle could come up with. That didn't happen. Then even when he had chances to play, it seemed like he didn't want him to engage in a full game plan, running around running against the Cardinals 16 times out of the huddle. It was like, so there's some oddities about it that makes you wonder if Kyle believed that he was, how much he believed. It's just hard to know based on what you watch and what you see. You think everything feels like he should be getting more opportunities and playing more, but it didn't come. And I don't know if Kyle needs to win it. He knows he's winning top, knocking on the doors of Super Bowls. He knows he has the team to do it. If there's a way to go get a Super Bowl, he's going to try to do it. And the fact that he didn't use Trey last year unless he was pushed for it, was a little, I don't want to say telling, because it feels like we're in a good spot right now based on no gameplay in the 22 season, but it just felt odd.
It did feel odd.
I have a theory on it, by the way.
But then when we saw him and he's talking about how Kyle was reluctant to build a game plan around him when he had to build a game plan around him for Garoppolo's injuries when he got the 2 starts, it didn't feel like Shanahan did anything different than what he would have done for Garoppolo. And that really surprised me too.
Well, the only thing is that Arizona game, he ran Trey Lance, whether it was designed runs or scrambles, 16 times. Steve even referenced it. He wasn't doing that with Garoppolo. So that one game, but I didn't like that game plan either because it subjected Trey to a number of hits. But my theory on that first one is that we saw it in the Green Bay game where Garoppolo led the team down the field, and then here came Trey. And I think Trey either scored, right? Didn't he score on a run? Or he threw a pass?
His very first pass was a touchdown, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And I really believe, now I have no sources, but just from living it and being around there and talking to enough people, I believe that the veterans on that team said, no, it ain't going down like that. It's not going down like that. You're not gonna have Jimmy run the team to the 10, and then all of a sudden here comes Trey to score the touchdown. I think there was pushback from the veteran leaders because we saw it early and we never saw it again. And I really think that there were guys who had Jimmy's back, and maybe Jimmy didn't go to Kyle, maybe he did, or maybe it was Kittle, maybe it was a number of leaders, but I just think that the leadership on the team said, this isn't good. And I think that's why Kyle shelved it. I don't think that Kyle has a different change in philosophy. I think it was pushback from the veteran leaders who didn't want it. That's my theory. And I don't have any sources, as I said, but that's my sense of it.
It's not a bad theory. To me, if I were Kyle Shanahan, I would have told everybody, I'll call the plays, you run the plays.
Right.
But I'm going to do whatever I think is best for this team.
You know, and I know that is a little bit like Rick Barry saying nobody's leaving practice till they shoot 100 free throws. It's like you can say it, but then to do it, to actually make the guys stay at practice, how long is that going to last? You can say it's my road, it's my way or the highway, but in reality, in pro sports, your leaders, you're so invested in. These guys show up in briefcases. They've got ownership of it right there with you. You want them to have ownership of it. I think they've got a bigger seat at the table than the average person.
Not a heavy-handed approach, but just basically like, hey, we just traded 3 future first rounds for this guy. This guy needs to come in. And by the way, the first and goal package that you see today isn't necessarily the first and goal package that you're going to see tomorrow. You know, at that point, maybe the advantage becomes, well, they think we get down here and we're going to put Trey Lance in, and we don't. You know, there's a lot of mind games to be played with 2 quarterbacks. There's also, of course, the old standard. If you have 2 quarterbacks, it means you really don't even have one.
But there's also egos to balance. Could you imagine if the program director came in and took you out of a segment and we're like, you know, we're going to go with this guy in this segment? You'd be like, no. You know, it's the same kind of thing. Hey, don't take me off the field. And now you're kind of making it look like I can't do the job. And that kind of undercuts me a little bit. That squelches my voice in the room. I lose a little power as a leader. I just think it's more of a theoretical versus, real life.
I think that Trey Lance is in an incredible situation. And Steve Young said, if I could throw my career right now to any franchise based on the coach and the coaching that you get from him and the offense that you get out of him, I would go to San Francisco. And I'm not just saying that because I was a 49er and I'm Steve Young. And obviously the Niners were good to me and so on and so forth.
He believes in Kyle.
He really does. He really, really does.
And he should.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of questioning about, did we give him the offensive genius card too early? Talk to people around football. People who know the game better than you and I ever will are saying that just from a running game standpoint alone, he carries the offensive genius card. And then what he gets out of his quarterback is the frosting on top of that. And I look, I'm a
Greg Cosell. Sorry to interrupt you, but the Greg Cosell always highlights the run pass fusion, the play action game, where Kyle will fool defenses, and he's ruthless as a play caller in how he makes somebody the conflict defender and then just tortures them.
The conflict defender. See, that's a Greg Cosell term right there. That's
the defender in conflict. Like, am I playing run? Am I playing pass?
Right.
He will figure out who that conflict defender is, who's that defender who's got to cover a lot of grass, and he'll put a lot of pressure on him and basically isolate him and exploit him.
Yeah, well, that's what coaching is in modern football. You have 22 ultra talented guys out on the field all playing against each other, but by process of elimination, there is the worst player over there, and that's who you attack over and over again. And this team's worst player isn't as bad as last week's team worst player was, and that means we're in a tighter game this time around, So there is so much of a game of chess, and he is a very good chess player. The amount of mentorship that is available to Trey Lance is extraordinary, not only with who's in the room around him, but there's no doubt in my mind that Steve Young is ready to take his phone call almost 24 hours a day. And when Young pointed out that there's literally nothing you're ever going to see that in some way, shape, or form I haven't already been through, boy, does Trey Lance need to get himself in front of Steve Young as much as possible just to hear things like this.
You got to remember, when I took the field, Joe was standing there. And in some ways, I was playing to try to impress Joe. Like in other words, if Joe's out here, the ball would be moving. If Joe was out here, we'd be scoring points. That's in my mind. I was like, it wasn't hard to make that. And so for me, the urgency was just standing there. And so in that way, it wasn't like I was trying to be him, because I learned very quickly that's not a really effective way to attack the problem. But as far as productivity, you better be productive. And so early on, you saw the run against the Vikings was absolutely a function of that urgency of like, look, we got to move the ball. And I don't know that I'm really smart or sophisticated enough to really move it, the veteran way. So I'm going to move it however I can. And so that's why Trey's going to have to use every inch and breadth and depth of his athletic ability, both throwing and running, to get to move the ball and to win games. And the urgency there, and there's going to be a higher risk of hurting himself. He's already done it once last year with his hand running around. There's going to be a risk because he's not going to step back trying to figure out the long game. His urgency is because it's a short game. I got to win this game.
Just so much good stuff coming out of this Steve Young interview.
He is an incredible resource for Trey. He really is. And listening to Trey at minicamp talk about meeting Steve and spending time with Steve, it's pretty cool that Trey understands that who Steve was, even though, obviously Trey's a young man. He never saw Steve really do his thing, but he knows he's a resource. And he's not like some guys know there's a resource, but they don't ever want to use it. Trey seems like the kind of guy that, understands Steve's an incredible resource and would use it.
Take advantage at all at your disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. I even think Brian Greasy in some ways could be a real help for Trey, not necessarily on the field, though he will help him on the field, but off the field, just like being a quarterback in the NFL, how to say no. How to say no. Your time's at a premium. You're going to have tons of people pulling at you. You got to be able to use some of your PR guy as a shield. You got to deflect some of your friends. You got to turn off your phone sometimes. You got to, right. Your time is your time, and you really got to maximize it. I think Greasy in some ways could be really good for Trey and what the decisions he makes off the field, and how to just kind of get through this whole thing as the leader of the team and the face of the team, but also the most important is what you do on Sunday.
Well, and it is the most important, obviously. It's, winning is the ultimate deodorant. Whatever went wrong, you win. That's all anyone focuses on, where you can play great in a loss and it'll almost be forgotten. Even though his constant development is going to be monitored and, like we said, maybe even measured against, Mac Jones, fair or foul. That's just the way the world of sports talks about sports these days. It's not enough to, you got to re-rank everyone at all times,
right?
Based on the game that you just saw. Let's re-rank the entire quarterback in class. I thought one of the more telling answers was when he said to you, it is about handling the media. You can put more pressure on your team by screwing up in a press conference than defensive coordinators can put on you with a really good defensive end. Know how to accept blame, know how to deflect the nonsense. And, you want to know why Baker Mayfield is out in Cleveland? It's because the nonsense is the only thing he addressed. Baker Mayfield rolled out of bed, really interested in what Colin Cowherd was going to say about him, and refute that at all times. And he just was constantly snippy with media members. And there was a lack of professionalism that, let's face it, even when Jimmy struggled, carried him through so many moments. You couldn't help but think, whatever he isn't out on the field at times, he is a perfect model of winning the press conference, saying the right thing, taking the blame, accepting the responsibility, and not kicking it down the road to anyone else who really doesn't deserve it. I know that he threw in Aaron Rodgers when he was talking about, Tom Brady doesn't do that. Aaron Rodgers does kind of do that. Aaron Rodgers is ready to throw whatever Green Bay Packer he needs to under the bus at any point in time. But Aaron Rodgers is also good enough to get away with, decorum murder because he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
I think to sum that up, I think what you're talking about is mental maturity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Garoppolo has. That's what Alex Smith had. I really believe that's what Trey has at the end of the day. He's got mental maturity. He's a young man, but he's got mental maturity. And that's enough experience and enough maturity to say, I don't need to win every sequence in front of a microphone. Everybody's opinions, like what Larry Krueger and Damon Bruce say about me, doesn't necessarily move my needle. But what Brian Griese says and George Kittle really does.
That matters. That's it.
Yeah. And it's just never losing sight of that like it's like appreciating guys like us, because the noise surrounding the game is why you're making a seven-figure deal. That's why so many people, you need that noise around the game, but you don't need it really. You just kind of need it. What you really need is the respect of your teammates and coaches. I thought one of the interesting things he said was, I think I was asking him a little bit about how does he assert leadership? And he said, ultimately it comes down to winning games. I mean, you can talk about all these other things and they're all vitally important. And what you just kind of covered, don't throw teammates under the bus. Don't blow up a press conference and have it be this headline grabber. But it's also, at the end of the day, that's all the noise. You still got to hit the field and produce.
Right.
And
look at
it. So you ought to have a very sober look at that aspect of your career and say, you know what? This is what matters. I got to produce. We got to win. And everything else is like, I don't want to say we'll take care of itself because that's too simplistic, but it's just secondary.
I come back to what was Kevin Durant's greatest fault. As great of an athlete as we'll ever have performing in front of us and delivering on his on-court performance on a near game-by-game basis. It was hard to give Kevin Durant anything other than really an A- in any game that he ever played for the Warriors. I mean, he was a straight A student and then flunked every single media moment, which made his existence a harder thing for him and everyone around him. And I never understood why, instead of making sure bombs blow up, you don't go in to defuse them. And it's like he had no instincts on how to defuse media bomb after media bomb. That's why every press conference was full of landmines and everyone's walking on eggshells. One of the things that worries me for Trey Lance, and it's not that he's going to be dealing with a vicious media out here. As a matter of fact, San Francisco sports media, basically the opposite of vicious, but just the size of it and the demands. And like you said, what can Brian Griese teach him? How to say no would probably be as an important lesson out there, because how many demands do you think were put on him at North Dakota State? What are there, 3 guys, all of them named, Sully and, and Murph and, Jethro. And those are the 3 guys covering North Dakota State football. And there isn't even a podcast attached to this program. Nobody cares except for North Dakotans. So
is that a word?
I don't know. It sounded right.
Yeah.
Didn't it? The North Dakotites. I don't know. Yeah. What is it? Yeah.
North Dakotites.
Yeah. So the size of the NFL, I hope doesn't spook him.
I scouted in the Canadian League in the mid 90s. One of the players I scouted was Carlton Lance, who was a safety / corner.
Was Trey Lance's father
for Saskatchewan? Yes, that's Trey Lance's dad. And so football's the family business.
Okay.
And when football's the family business, you see it all. It's like second generation baseball players or basketball players or football. It's like Steph Curry. It's like he sees it all. He doesn't get caught up in this and that. Why? Because he sees the entire picture. He understands his role, the media's role, the GM's role, and when you get it all and you've that was the family business and you learned it at a young age, I just think that it's not new, and you understand how to navigate those waters better than the person who's just going through it for the first time.
Duke in the city saying Trey needs to move in with the Youngs. Yeah, absolutely. Steve, you got a spare bedroom? I'd love to spend as many dinners with you as humanly possible. And again, Steve Young is the right guy for Trey Lance to study in so many different ways.
Any footprints that you see ahead of you, they're mine. Like there's no way that you're going to go through something in the next 10 years, specifically in San Francisco, that I don't have some context for or have some history with or some unusual situation from being on the front page of the Chronicle when they blamed the Gulf War on me in 1991. You know, it's funny, but it's not funny kind of thing. And so I think Trey I just want to let him know that part of it, that whatever path you're on, there's people that have kind of walked it in not exactly the same way, and just some context for how to have some resilience to it, not try to focus on the things that are most important.
And that's just an open invitation. I am a resource. Tap in.
Yeah. And you know what's really cool about it is Steve, you know, there are a lot of guys who used to play for the team, but they're not invested anymore in the team.
Right.
Steve is invested. He's invested in the area and he's invested in the team. You know, I mentioned before the Forever Young Foundation. He showed us last year, and just by all these different people that he would pat on the back for what they were doing for our society, that he's totally invested in the Bay Area, which makes us as Bay Area sports fans be more invested in him, you know, right? Conversely. And he's very invested in the 49ers. I mean, he's passionate about the Niners getting that 6th ring.
Yeah, he cares.
Yeah.
He absolutely cares about it.
And that's cool. I think that is really cool, because sometimes you wonder, all right, was it just a job?
Right. I just work here.
Was it just a paycheck? Was it just and for many guys it is, and there's nothing really wrong with that.
It is a profession after all.
Right, exactly. And when you're done, and they'll throw you out. You know, you hear that saying, nobody really cares about anybody, and pro sports can harden you and turn you off to things. But I like the fact that Steve's invested. He's invested. And that's kind of what I love about Joe Lacob in some ways. I look at Joe Lacob as like the modern day Eddie DeBartolo, because DeBartolo was totally and utterly, his bottom line was the fans' bottom line.
Right. He did not sleep well on nights they lost.
Like the Niners lost in 1984, like $10 million, but they won the Super Bowl and Eddie D was thrilled. And you get the same feeling with Joe. Whether Joe has a financial win, he's all about the Larry O'Brien trophy.
Right.
And when he's all about the Larry O'Brien trophy, now he's just like me and you. And he's just like the guy in the 5th row. And you can totally relate to that. And then that makes you love Joe Lacob, because you're like, man, this guy's all about the W. And, you know, as a fan, I don't know that it gets any better than that, because there's so many people that are about so many other things.
You know, I asked Steve about the forever comparison between Trey Lance and Mac Jones, because the Niners were very much attached to Mac Jones by credible media sources. And I think Kyle's own curiosity really attached them to Mac Jones. I think that was a little bit of a coin flip, that had it come up Mac Jones, Kyle would not have been sulking. You know, I know that Steve is going to say here in the soundbite, you know, it would have felt less state of the modern football player to get a guy like Mac Jones. But at the same time, there is no quarterbacking attribute, not arm strength, not foot speed, nothing that will ever be more important than a completion percentage. And you can talk about, well, you know, maybe those completion percentages were because he's throwing a lot of short passes. Well, a lot of those short passes gave Mac Jones a completion percentage that one of the most accurate passers ever in Steve Young only eclipsed twice in a 13-year Hall of Fame career. That feels significant. It does feel. I wonder if really Kyle didn't bow to the pressure, bow to it just a little, because it felt always to me like Kyle just wants a guy to run his offense. Like that's the similarity between he and Pete Carroll. Like Pete Carroll was tired of Russell Wilson making it up as he went along. So he convinced himself it's time to move on. And that was a big fracture in their relationship. Kyle seems like he wants his system and his reads and his quarterback progression to be the star of the offense. And that takes accuracy. And I asked Steve about comparing the two, and is that fair or foul?
When you sat back in 2021 in the warmth of April or May or June, trying to figure out what the next 10 years in the league looks like, you did not necessarily lean in to somebody who wasn't a dynamic. And when I say dual threat, that's a college term. Dual threat means is you're an elite passer who can run. Because if you're not an elite passer in the pros, there's no threat. So a true dual threat pro quarterback is an elite passer who has legs. In college, it's not necessarily as demanding, and so then that one's more a runner a guy who can run around, who can throw. So to be somebody in the next 10 years who plays in the NFL and thrives as a dual threat in those terms needs to be number one, an elite passer of the football, and then they can run. And because Trey has that potential, it's hard not to lean in.
There's one thing about Mac Jones where Mac Jones is better than Trey Lance today, and that is the ball comes out on time.
Well, and he's played 17 games and reached the postseason already. Like, he had a rookie year.
But they played the
mattered.
same number of college games. Like, Mac didn't play a ton of college games, and Trey didn't play a ton of college games.
Right,
Mac,
but one guy won a national championship in the brightest spotlight in the world.
and played in the SEC. And the other guy's playing in FCS. So it's a different level. But the thing with Mac Jones is the ball comes out on time. And that's what Mac Jones is. That's the true greatness of Mac Jones. He doesn't throw it early, doesn't throw it late, he processes things correctly, and the ball comes out on time. Trey will learn that. That's a learned trait, but he's not quite there yet. Where Mac doesn't have great arm strength, doesn't have unbelievable foot speed. He's not that futuristic athlete, but the ball comes out on time. And I think there is an element of Kyle Shanahan that would have been happy with just a quarterback where the ball consistently comes out on time.
That's why the choice felt like they're trying to force it. I hope I hope my instincts are proved wrong on this. I really do. I really want Trey Lance to be the guy, because if he isn't, the amount of capital that they've invested in for him, it's not a fireable offense for Shanahan.
It's career defining,
but it is. If this guy doesn't work at quarterback, Kyle Shanahan can still be the coach based on his football X's and O's knowledge, but any sort of title of general manager, I think, needs to be stripped of him. And then at that point, that's when John Lynch gets fired.
You know, it's funny because John Lynch, they were just debating on TV, yesterday or this morning, is John Lynch a top, or maybe it was in Niners Nation, they were debating, is John Lynch already a top 5 NFL general manager? I do like the roster he's accumulated. But I'd probably go shy.
Yeah.
I think that's a little premature.
I do too. When we come on back, we won't have much time left. The All-Star game is officially underway, and the National League is leading already. So we'll get you up to date there, let you know what's going on, and maybe one or two more Steve Young cuts from an outstanding interview, which you missed any of it. Make sure you circle back around to Damon and Ratto with, of course, Larry in for Ratto. It's all there on the Odyssey app. Don't you go anywhere. Much more coming up. Damon and Ratto with Larry filling in here on 95.7 The Game, brought to you by Fremont Bank. Full service banking, no compromises.
of Santa Clara. The Morning Roast from 6 to 9.
You're competing in a division with the Dodgers and the Padres. You have to understand it's an arms race.
Willard and Dibs from 9 to noon.
So many Giants fans are like, quit waiting for the future. But in many ways, acquiring Juan Soto would be just that.
Steiny and Guru from noon to 3.
If I can get this 23-year-old stud to roam right field and hit the ball in the China Basin, how do you not go all in on that?
And Damon and Ratto from 3 to 6.
Hall of Fame quarterback Steve Young here.
You got to remember, when I took the field, Joe was standing there. And in some ways, I was playing to try to impress Joe.
The best of the game, presented by the County of Santa Clara. Book a COVID-19 booster shot now at sccfreevax.org or call 211. Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
We are wrapping up Damon and Ratto. Again, Larry in for Ray today and the rest of the week. We've got ourselves the middle of the second inning already in the All-Star game, and the National League leads 2-0. McClanahan got cuffed around a little bit. 4 hits. I guess Ohtani took him right up the middle. And then when Kershaw, Lucas came in here and said it was a balk, and he got away with it. Got picked off over at first. Anyways, bottom of the first, Paul Goldschmidt homered. It was a solo shot, left center field, 415. And then Mookie singled to center, and Ronald Acuna Jr. scored. So, All-Star underway. We'll talk a little bit about it tomorrow for sure, because it's the only All-Star game that is actually compelling.
Is the AL the better league? I was looking at some of the numbers. When we were kids, the NL won all the time.
Yep.
The AL has lost only 6 times going back to 1988. That's a long time, man. That's a long time. 6 losses going back to 88. Only 3 losses going back to 97.
NL hasn't won in a decade.
Yeah, and the AL has not lost since 2013. 2013 was the last time the NL got the win. Is the AL the better league? I mean, it's hard to know in the All-Star game. Then you want to look at the World Series as well. But what do you think? I mean, the NL was the better league.
Well, to me, there's no difference in the leagues
all
anymore.
of the 70s.
There's no difference in either league now. There's none. So what, to try to say one's better than the other, it's just,
cyclical.
Yeah. But it to me, what separated and really created a conversation, apples or oranges, it's just apples. Everyone's got apples now. How do you like them apples? Yeah. I don't like the DH in the National League. Full stop. Did I like watching pitchers hit? Not necessarily, but I liked the flow of the game. I liked double switches. I liked managerial decisions that weren't just, we're going to pinch hit everyone all the time. By the way, did you see who is going to be coaching Team El Francais in the World Baseball Classic?
Boch.
It's Boch.
Good for Boch.
Dude, he's going to get so loaded up with the Bordeaux. He's going to be so taken care of. Nice legs.
I just barbecued on my Traeger. Get a beer.
You can't argue.
You ever interview? I know you interviewed Boch, but
yes, of course.
You ever get an extended one-on-one with Boch?
Oh, we've had a glass of wine in his office once.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I did that too. I didn't have a glass of wine, but after the 2014 World Series, Jim Moorhead, the PR guy at the time, was like, "Hey, you want to talk to?" I was happened to be there one day. He's like, "Boch is in his office. You want to do a one-on-one with Boch?" It's like 3 days after the World Series. I'm like, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah,
and I'm just praying that my mini disc recorder I didn't
right. Did I start that right? Where the battery's got enough batteries?
Oh my god!
So I've had beverages with 2 Bay Area coaches, manager in Bochy's case. That was a little simple. I mean, it was like a Dixie cup. It's not like he poured me a nice big, beefy
sifter.
Yeah. No, it was
a cognac sifter.
It was if this doesn't go poorly, it can't last more than 5 minutes cup of wine. And I also was invited in, like I think every media member was, for a Bud Light with Don Nelson early on.
Nice.
I could immediately tell, like, I'm being measured by Don Nelson here. He wants to know if I'm going to be on board or candy ass or hardcore guy. Like he is measuring me as much as I'm talking to him.
Who's the radio interview that you're like, the interview is kick ass, and it's lost. It's gone. It's in the ether. You're never going to find it. There's no recording for whatever reason.
You know,
it's been lost.
I have yet to, knock on all the wood you can find.
You don't have an interview that you did like a long time ago that's like
yet to
evaporated?
I've yet to have a blow it up interview where the equipment failed. It didn't happen. We didn't do it. It's yet to happen.
Wow. That's
well,
pretty good.
Here at 95.7 The Game, Larry.
Yeah.
We understand what we're doing.
The guys behind the scenes know what they're doing. Yeah.
Tim Jordan, all-star, baby. And Grandy. Yeah, that's right, Grandy. Pump
I
it up.
did an interview one night.
Who'd you lose?
They had me go up to Sonoma for a round table, and it was a Tony La Russa Art Foundation deal. And I'm sitting around a table, and I had Lon Simmons, Bill DeWitt, the owner of the Cardinals, Tony La Russa, Jack Buck, and we sat there drinking wine for like a couple hours. And we went, it was a 7 to 10 show across the street. We took it to midnight. We did a 5-hour show.
That's pretty cool.
And I had it for years, and poof, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is.
So
the late Jack Buck,
I got to tell you,
and the late Lon Simmons, joking, talking. I mean, it was incredible.
When Jack Buck died, I used to call my buddy Ackerman, Tom, it's Jack Buck. I'm in heaven. Anyway, there was one.
That's a pretty good Jack Buck, actually.
The one time that something could have gone wrong, it was during pandemic radio. I mean, we were all doing stuff from home. I hadn't been into the studio in 8 months, and the one day we had a Steph Curry interview lined up, my at-home Comrex box just failed me. So I told Lucas, I said, I am coming in. I don't care if I get COVID and die. I'm coming into the studio to do a Steph Curry interview. And it was the only time I was in the studio in the course of a year and a half. And I'm like, I don't care who dies. I'm coming in to get this interview. So that was it. But we got it.
Did anybody die? Or
no, we're all still here.
All right.
So
wanted to see if there was a price to be paid for this interview.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you who worked here before Mark Grandy. He's no longer with us. No.
We lost him that fateful night over Macho Grande.
That's right.
Peace, Nasher.
Over Macho Grande? Never. Never get over Macho Grande. Thank you so much to Steve Young for joining us. He was so good. Here's what we're going to do. I can tell you that Alan Stiles and Chuck Walter are coming up next here on 95.7 The Game. But what we're going to play for you next, right after this break, is the interview that we just did with Steve Young. So if you missed it, it's right around the corner. If you've only been enjoying these sound bites, you're about to enjoy the entire thing. And then after that, Alan Stiles and Chuck Walter are going to take you deep into a night where the winner of the All-Star game will have home field advantage in the world. Thank God that doesn't exist anymore. Thank you very much to Steve Young. Larry, hell of a job out of you for booking him today. Nice work.
Yeah. Should I
flex it out, baby?
There you go.
Flex it out. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Grandy. And please do remember that Steve Young is coming up next, right after the break. And sports don't build character, they reveal it.
And like that, he's gone. Damon and Ratto talked Trey Lance with the great Steve Young.
You talked about Trey and his development. I'm really